Welcome to the Call to Action podcast, where we bring you incredible people and even more incredible stories with discussions and topics about what it takes to sacrifice everything to overcome hardships and failures to achieve success. Our guests heard the call. Now it's your turn.
So there I was sitting in Richmond, Virginia, getting advice from this legendary designer. And one of the first things he told me was, you have to fire all of your clients. And I was like, hold on. Wait.
Whoa.
I'll do whatever you say, except.
Where am I going to bring in any income?
Exactly. So he was like, you're not making enough money from those clients to make ends meet. And he had me crunch my numbers, and I was actually making less than $3 an hour.
Ouch. He is a brand strategist, an amazing award-winning designer, an expert speaker, and an expert in user experience. He is the chief operating officer of the-futur, an educational platform where creative professionals learn business principles, and the design creative director at Blind, a brand strategy design consultancy. Nike, EA, Google, Snapchat, Xbox, Sony, Riot Games, Honda, NFL, MLB, Audi, DreamWorks, Paramount Pictures, Wells Fargo, AMC, TBS, the Olympic US team, I'll ask you about that in a sec, Leica, and Hyatt are just a few of their clients. It's no wonder why he's a top social media influencer, co-host of a major YouTube channel, and Father of the Year, because aside from his proven leadership, major successes, and pissing creative excellence day in and day out, the dude from Big Lebowski, Gandalf, Abraham Lincoln, nor James Harden have shit on this glorious beard. Please welcome our guest to the show, Mr. Ben Burns.
Wow. I want to meet this guy.
Welcome, man.
Thank you.
Welcome, bro.
Cheers.
Hey, this one's to you.
But seriously, I'm calling you out, beardaholics.com. That 100 top beards article needs to be readjusted, because not only is it good for SEO, but that's a top 10 beard of all time. So just
I want to bring back
there.
like this new kind of ASMR, where I'm just rubbing my beard on the microphone, you know?
Here we go.
Bro, this is the weirdest thing. Last night we were working late, prepping for this, and I didn't even know what ASMR was till he showed me.
And I showed him.
I was thinking,
okay.
I was thinking about that exact same thing. What would his beard sound like on that? I'm not even kidding you. That is the weirdest thing.
Wow.
We'll do a separate clip.
Yeah,
of
we
just
need to
you, and we can make him 20 minutes.
Separate clip. You can do it now.
Right.
Jeez
ear
Louise,
massage.
man. Well, before we get started, it's a unique way to do this, but I think it's pretty fitting. Want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Hamilton Family Brewery. Man, this is quite a beautiful thing here, because not only do we support and love the story behind Hamilton, Josh and Kristen it's an incredible story what you guys were able to do, and Sean and his buddy, who's the head sales and distribution guy up there, and his buddy Tyler came down all the way from Rancho to drop these bad boys off, all this gear. Truly amazing thing. But our guest, Mr. Ben Burns, designed and executed with his team at the-futur this beautiful can, a whole rebrand, the logo, everything that had to do with a major facelift on this company, and man, did they nail it. So we just want to thank you guys from the bottom of our heart. Mr. Ben Burns, I hope this is a little special thing.
This is
for you
awesome.
too.
I walked in and you have this huge spread of Hamilton gear on the table. Like, for the listeners, there's stickers everywhere.
Some of those are for you too, by the way.
They got a hat, and it was really cool walking in here to see this. Not often do you get to see your design somewhere physical, right? And it's so cool to just like see it everywhere, especially here. Just totally surprised. Thank you.
And it's not quite on the store shelf yet, as I'm aware. Not quite yet. It's in a couple of Bevmos and things like that. So guys, keep an eye out for them, and I'm sure we'll keep you updated on how the progress is coming along there. So well, man, cheers to them again, man. Why not? Just another reason to take a sip, bro.
Check out these gorgeous cans there.
Real quick, before we jump into your story, it's incredible.
Yes.
All the twists and turns. We're going to dive in real deep, but we're going to put you through the brain freeze frenzy.
Okay.
Brain freeze frenzy is a prefrontal cortex warm-up like you've never experienced. So random questions, wild array, rapid fire. Are you ready?
No, but go for it. My dad brain is going to start hurting me in a second.
What is one positive thing you can say about yourself today?
Oh, man. I figure stuff out.
Love it.
Yeah.
Tell us about your morning routine.
Waking up is important. So that's the first thing. And then everything else differs every single day. So I don't have a routine.
That's safe to say.
It's my man. Yeah, very similar here.
So I did some research on you, and you are prone to running. Right? That's your choice. That's something you're drawn to. Do you still do that? Is that part of your daily routine, or 3 or 4 days a week? What's your workout routine look like?
Habits are really tough for me to stick to. I'm more of like a mission oriented guy. It's like, I want to meet a goal, and then once I'm done with that, I kind of move on. So running is something that I actually have to think about all the time. And I still do it like many times a week, but it's one of those things that just doesn't come naturally. It's like, okay, I got to put my shoes on and get out the door and go. So
it's difficult, but it pushes you to challenge yourself to do that just because of that one simple factor is that it's difficult.
And this year I've ran more than any other year. And it's simply because I put a goal at the beginning of the year to just do 12 5Ks. So
12 5Ks.
I have one 5K per month that I'm like, I just got to prep for. And that kind of satisfies the mission.
That's solid. Where do you run?
Just outside.
Oh, yeah.
Around the neighborhood.
Yeah. Okay, man. This is just continuing on. What's the last thing in your search browser?
Honestly, it's probably looking up the HTML syntax for a link. For some reason, I cannot remember the ahref, and whenever I'm coding, I have to look that one thing up. Yep. I can code everything else, but just that one thing.
This guy's technical.
Yeah, real technical, and we love that. What's the most expensive logo you've sold to date?
$250,000. Yeah.
That's pretty decent.
Yeah, it's up there. Favorite meal of the day?
Dinner, by far.
Okay.
If you could go back in history and get drunk or high with anyone, who would it be and why?
Hands down, Teddy Roosevelt. He's a personal hero of mine. Too. I just like reading. I have all of his letters that he wrote to his families. He just seems like an amazing person, and the adventures that he had.
Did you read that book?
Incredible.
The one about his travels down to Brazil and the River of Doubt. It's called.
Yes.
How fascinating was that?
And didn't his son die on that trip? And he caught malaria?
I don't believe on the trip, but shortly afterward, I believe. He got malaria. He almost died. Oh, wow. They have a very, very phenomenal series on History Channel as well. It's you have to watch it, man.
Wow.
Or was it History or one of those, but Geographic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that guy.
Have you guys been to his home on the East Coast?
No. Have you?
When I was young. Yeah. They used to do tours. I don't know if they still do this thing, if it's a thing at all. Great guest. So what's your spirit animal? If you had to choose one.
Oh my God, that's a tough one.
But it's a good one.
It is a good one.
Take your time.
But hurry up.
I don't know. It's either a lion or a sloth. Those are the two things that like popped into my head.
Okay.
If a lion mated with the sloth on one of his off days, that would be you. What's the reasoning behind that? Why do you think that?
I honestly think that like with the sloth, they're slow moving, but they get what they need to go. And I think that there's power in laziness.
Yes.
Because lazy people get stuff done normally quicker than people who aren't lazy because they don't want to be working.
We'll re-parallel into this. I think there's something behind this, and we have a section, but I think I don't think it's necessarily being lazy. It might have something to be very patient.
It's very much an engineering mindset. We say laziness is virtue. It's one of the keys.
Interesting. That's cool. I like that. And then lion, it's just, I love the sense of adventure, trying new things.
Absolutely.
Putting myself out there.
It's an apex predator as well. So when it needs to, it kills.
Is that a 5K day?
Yeah.
So
lay down the sloth.
Yeah,
pick up the lion mantle. Yeah.
Put it to sleep for a bit. What's your favorite app?
Probably Notion. I run my life through Notion. So it's a kind of like a cross between Trello and Wikipedia.
Okay.
I guess. So it stores everything and tracks progress on a project. And
so you publish all this online through the Notion and give people pretty sweet websites with up-to-date calendars and all that?
Kind of. It's what we use to manage our projects. So.
Oh, you guys use this?
Yeah. And then I use it for my personal life too.
Right.
So everything's routed through there.
So this is a company tool?
Kind of, yeah. It's both.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. So it's kind of like if you took Wikipedia and Trello and Google Docs and mushed them all up into one thing.
One of my good friends up the street, he uses Notion, and he gave me like his hiking schedule. So we do hikes, just kind of randomly.
Cool. Yeah, so he published it.
He does.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this looks really nice. Like, you did such a good job. And I thought he just slapped something together in React Native, and whatever else. But then he told me it was Notion.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. We use it literally for everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we'll dive into that a little bit later. What's your favorite body part on the opposite sex? Turning gears a little bit.
It's random. We're just
personality? What?
Yeah.
It's a trap.
That's a safe answer.
Next.
All right. This one's good too. What's the last thing that you're glad that no one saw?
Oh man, I was carrying the trash out the other day and I totally busted my ass.
Did the trash spew everywhere?
Yeah, the trash bag broke open, glass was everywhere, and it was like this Tupperware lid that for some reason was on my back patio. I stepped on that thing and just no one saw it. It was pitch black.
Your daughter set you up.
Yep, that was it.
Oh yeah, she knew.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't let her have something that she wanted, and she said, "I'm going to get you back, Dad."
She is that smart.
Well, you're alive and you're here today. What was your first car?
Oh man, Pontiac Grand Prix.
Oh, that's a good car.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I never actually drove it though. My mom wrecked it on my 16th birthday. I had it. I bought it.
Thanks, Mom.
I saved up every penny that I had for years and bought it. And it was sitting in the driveway. And she was on the way to pick me up from work on my 16th birthday with the car.
Oh, my goodness.
And totaled it. Isn't that crazy?
I feel like that's a 180 from the usual. It's like, I bought the car on my 16th. I wrecked it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a cool car. What color?
Red.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh. Yep.
Oh, that goes in line with the lion. So, all right. What's the most annoying habit a coworker or family member has? And you don't have to name names, but the call to action's all about that therapy life, bro. So, Christo or Matthew and Seema, do they do something a little annoying? Do they bite their nails? Do they pick their nose?
Matthew Encina is kind of my counterpart at the Future. He's the chief content officer, and he's just so fucking good at everything that it's just like, he drives me to be better, which is great. But it's just one of those like, man, why are you so good?
This guy's that for me. He pushes me a lot. Sometimes you're like, man, but it's always. It's better to have them on your team than not, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Way to call their ass out.
Yeah, exactly. Gotcha.
You could be an inanimate object for a day. What would it be and why?
Inanimate object. I'm gonna say a plane, just for the experience of like getting to go a whole bunch of places in a single day. Nice. That'd be cool.
Well, that's a great response.
Nice. Do you have a creative way of handling a foreign sales call? Like, do you ruffle paper? Do you pretend like you're having sex? Do you fart into the phone? Like, I have my tricks, but do you have
what do you mean, like a foreign sales
I'm trying
call?
To be
like,
a little bit politically correct, but you get, at least we get a bunch of these more East countries that call you.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see.
With
I just
pretending to be Victor or Rick and
I literally don't answer numbers I don't know.
Good
so
for you.
That's
the best one. Yeah.
But the worst is when they leave messages and it's the automated things. They're like, "Hey, bro, I have this $10,000 for you. If you want to just text me your social, I'll have it wired over." And it's like, no, who falls for this?
Yeah, hopefully
there
nobody.
are people.
Yeah.
That's the sad thing. All right, moving on.
If coffee was an illegal drug, what would its underground name be? Hamilton Brewery.
Man, I don't know. Maybe just J for Java. I don't know.
Trying to put you on the spot. That's why the brain freeze frenzy, baby. All right, we're keep moving. Meanest social media comment you've read.
Oh man,
and you've got it pulled up right now.
I actually probably could. I have my phone on airplane mode, but
or craziest DM.
So I got a
both?
message the other day that somebody's using my photos on a dating website.
Heck yeah, you're a good-looking
So I was
dude,
like,
man.
Honored, but also really concerned about my reputation because this guy was kind of like a sleaze bag to these chicks.
I mean, but wouldn't you with that face, bro? I know I would.
I was just like, oh my God, this is horrible. So
He's probably pretty successful on there then if he's keeping that up. My goodness.
Well, I reached out. I had them cancel the accounts, but it's like, man, I never thought that would be happening. It's just crazy.
All right. So. If you could call yourself 10 years ago, what advice would you give yourself? And secondly, if you could call yourself 10 years in the future, what would you want to ask yourself?
10 years ago, I probably would have made the jump. I would give myself the advice of making the jump into entrepreneurship sooner. I was scared for so long and waited for so long to kind of pursue what I wanted to pursue that I feel like I missed out on some really good years that I could have had. So that's the advice that I would have given myself. The question I want to answer in the future is like, what's the right call? Because right now there's so much potential for the future and for everything else. It's like figuring out what to focus on right now is what we're struggling with. And that's what I would say, like, look, what should we focus on?
We'll dive into those things, those points actually pretty deep here, Lynn, just a little bit. We're wrapping up through this, but we appreciate your patience going through this craziness.
If the future could only choose one platform to post all of its content on, and the consequences for not following those rules would be death penalty by electric chair, what would it be and why? Which platform?
Oh, YouTube. Easy.
YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like
easy. That was okay.
Easy. It's our second language. Speaking the YouTube.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Algorithm.
If you were craving cereal right now, right this second,
Golden
one brand.
Grams.
Which one?
Golden Grams.
Okay, but
Hands down.
there's a second part. You went to the fridge and you were out of milk. Substitute liquid, go.
Oh my God, coffee.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Easy.
A little
coffee.
crack cocaine in the morning. Heck yeah.
Sugar
All right.
and caffeine. Come on.
All right.
We'll have that ready for you for round 2.
Mine would be Cinnamon Toast Crunch and coffee.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
If you had to add one fashion item to your wardrobe, what would you choose, fanny pack or satchel? Go.
Well, fanny packs are trending right now, aren't they? So probably that, I guess, but neither.
But you have to.
I said fanny pack.
All right, fanny pack it is.
Yeah.
Me too, actually. I'm wearing one now. If you could conceal carry here in California, what would you choose? A Glock, Sig Sauer, or Kimber sidearm, and what caliber?
Great question. Probably a Glock.
Glock, really?
45. Yeah.
You like the Glock?
I love Glocks.
We'll get into. I mean, I'm sure you have your reasons why, but for me, I grew up in Arizona, so we went shooting, hunting, all that. My best friends in the military. Got some background. Not myself, but my family has a lot of background in the military. And man, that thing with the plastic, body is in the metal slide. For me, it's a little sloppy. It's definitely my shot. I'm not a great shot, guys, but I really love the Kimber. But that's so. 45.
Kimbers are beautiful, right?
Yes, they are.
I carried a Kimber
fancy.
for a while. I had buddies who carried Kimbers, and they had some malfunctions, so I just don't trust them as much.
Gotcha.
Okay. You travel a lot more now being an in-demand expert speaker. What's the worst airplane or airport moment?
Okay, so this had nothing to do with speaking. I was actually flying back from a fishing trip a couple of years ago. We were on the runway, taxiing. We were about to take off. You know, that moment where the plane is just like, and then you go.
Yeah.
Well, in that moment, the entire plane shut down. Like lights off, no interior lights.
That's comforting.
No engine noises. It just gone. And so I was like, oh my God, 30 seconds later, and this would have been like a plane crash. But thankfully, United gave me a $50 credit, so we're all fine.
Oh, sick. That's what your life's worth. $50. Good for them, man.
And you're here today to tell another story.
That's right.
Oh my goodness. All right. Favorite brand of marker or pencil, and when the heck are you coming out with your own?
Oh, that's a great question. Really, really enjoy the Pilot G2.
Me too.
But I've been carrying the Fisher Space Pen now for a couple of weeks.
Whip it out. Show it to the camera.
Oh, yeah.
For our
That's
guests.
a solid choice.
This is
That
cool.
looks like
Dude,
that looks like a 50 cal round.
Right? So I like the brass, but expanded.
Oh man,
It's perfect.
Classy.
Yeah. So
You're
this has been around
classy,
since the 70s. It's got like a pressurized ink
And that's
Okay.
weighted,
chamber.
isn't it?
Yeah, here.
Yeah.
So
It's weighted.
it's cool.
All right, pass it around when you're done. I gotta feel this too. Ooh.
You could try and smoke it.
Not here. Not here. All right, go ahead, sir.
This is a great question.
Okay.
Take your time.
And it's his.
If needed. What's the most counterintuitive creative advice you could give someone?
I got to think about this one. This is really...
Like, the best ideas come from sitting on the toilet, or standing upside down on your head while drawing creates the best logos.
No, I got it. The most counterintuitive advice is... this is bad advice, right?
Give it to me.
We're giving bad advice? Because the worst advice you could give somebody about being creative is like, wait until it's perfect before putting it out. That's something I struggle with on a daily basis. It's like, I'm so, I feed on those positive comments, and those negative comments kind of weigh on me. So it's really hard for me to put things out there into the world that I create on a daily basis because it's not perfect yet. And so the worst thing you can say to people is like, wait until it's perfect before you send it out. And I, believe 100% in the opposite. It's like, get it done, then put it out, and then do it again.
Interesting.
Yeah, surely. So it sounds counterintuitive, although it's the right...
Yeah.
So just like athletes go back in the film room and study a previous match, have you gone back to study a logo and realized you just completely bombed it?
Oh, absolutely. All the time. Yeah. Every time, every year that goes by, the previous year's work looks horrible. So
True. But that's life, man. We're
hypercritical.
Where do you stand here? This is
still
sharp.
stand behind that thing.
Dude, you guys
amazing.
crushed this. I gotta
the
say.
Hamilton project is probably my favorite work that I've ever had to do.
Is it because you have unlimited beer on tap for life now, or on top of being the coolest can I've ever seen in my life?
I'm just super proud of the aesthetics.
Yeah.
And that's not something that I can say about a lot of my work, where it's like, this is something I wear. I wear the t-shirt, I wear the hat, and all the other stuff that I've done in the past, I've found little things to like pick at, and like, it's not that great, so I'm just not going to put it out there. But this is just, I'm in love with it.
And man, I gotta say too, sorry for interrupting you, but man, this logo, I gotta say, is phenomenal. And I love the last minute addition to the home. Just sometimes the smallest tweaks give the most impression. And say the loudest thing. So when you guys made the base of this, and I'll post a picture up for the YouTube channel, the base of this hop is the house that they not only, for me, this is what I got from the story, that he had to give up to create this, but also the home that he was creating. Mm-hmm. So what was growing out of that, the double entendre there is that, things, while you have to sacrifice, and sometimes you have to sacrifice everything on the line to create something, man, it can grow into something much, much bigger than you ever thought it could. So phenomenal job.
And these cans really pop out on a shelf. I mean, I would gravitate towards these in a heartbeat. I think that the colors are just so neat. You don't see them in beer cans.
I'm salivating looking at it. So I'll have another
I love
sip.
it.
Next question.
All right, quick. Favorite Spotify music playlist and podcast other than Call to Action, of course.
Okay, I don't use Spotify.
All right.
However, I use Apple Music, and I tend to gravitate towards like the focus stuff.
Okay.
I listen to music while I'm sprinting, and it's just a great playlist.
Awesome.
Do you
Really
ASMR
subtle.
while sprinting or working?
No, never. Can't stand that stuff, except for the beard. I'm gonna bring it.
Yeah.
Needs to
Absolutely.
happen.
Give us another one.
All right, Mr. Ben Burns. Last question. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
You are a user experience expert. Describe the color yellow to someone who is blind.
That's a great question. I have no idea how user experience plays into that at all. But
Well, I'll tell you, because someone who is blind experiences something very different from someone that can actually get the full spectrum from the visual, smell, hearing, taste. A whole sensory is cut off for them. So, I mean, not cut off per se, but they don't get the full spectrum of what we do. So they don't experience it the same as we do. That's how I would justify it.
I got it.
The yellow smiley face ball. It's our desk jockey.
So if somebody was blind, the way that I would describe the color yellow to them is if you're standing outside on a sunny day and you feel the warmth on your skin, but at the same time, it's almost, you feel the cool breeze. It's that combination because it's not just warmth. It's almost like a bright warmth.
Right.
So it's that feeling of the sun on your skin.
Absolutely.
Oh, very descriptive.
Congratulations, my man. You made it through.
Yeah, you're
Oh
in.
my God, that was tough.
The brain
Thanks, guys.
freeze
I'll
frenzy.
see you later.
Yeah, see you later.
It only gets harder.
He's over it. That was too random for him. No, thanks, man. Appreciate it. So awesome, man. We're going to jump into your life story and get to kind of where you are now. Can you give us, paint the full picture for us, kind of where everything started? What was the home life like? Were your parents, you guys have a close relationship? What were you into as a young man, etc.?
Sure. Yeah. So we're going all the way back.
All the way back, throwing it back, baby.
Sure. Grew up in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I'm one of 3 boys in the family, so I've got 2 younger brothers. So, we're all bruisers. We freaking fought all the time growing up, but, we're best friends. And was close with the parents. As a kid, I freaking loved reading and drawing and Legos. And my mom was really into pushing us into like creativity, mostly just to keep us occupied so we didn't hurt each other. But
was she creative herself?
I think she's a creative person, but she's a nurse. So
you got to be creative there.
Yeah. But she was always pushing us like down in the basement to go color or something.
Right.
So I think that kind of led to a creative career. But moved from Kalamazoo, Michigan to Hilton Head, South Carolina in 8th grade. So that was a big transition for me personally, just because, it's a totally new atmosphere. It's a totally new culture going from Michigan to the deep South. So starting high school down there was almost like starting fresh. I had to learn new like traditions and new mannerisms and stuff like that. And that was definitely a journey.
Wow, man.
I want to pause here just to see if you guys have any questions, because I know like with these life stories things, I can ramble on. So you just let me know.
Did you move right into high school? Were you like freshman?
Yeah.
Okay, we had done that similarly here in California. What was that like? Because you kind of like leave all your known friends behind, to the unknown.
Yeah.
You ramble on, brother. There's no. We'll get to what we need to. No worries, man.
Yeah. So we moved the summer of 8th grade. So the next school year was literally freshman year of high school.
Wow.
So it's just kind of like
That's tough.
super shocking.
That's tough, man, because you're not. High school is like, high school. Like as a freshman, I mean, I don't know. Were you a tall and stout dude then too?
Yeah.
Okay, so that played a little bit into your advantage. I was a scrawny little bastard. I was under 100 pounds. I was like 5'3". I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I couldn't imagine like switching my life with no base. At least you had your brothers, I guess.
Yeah.
But man, I
Are they
think
also taller?
I would have struggled.
So one is like taller than I am and probably 140 pounds. So he's like stick thin. When we're together, people don't know that we're brothers.
That's how it always is. The younger, taller, more handsome brother.
Yeah, exactly.
You must have eaten your Wheaties.
I have one of those as well.
Yeah. So, but yeah, high school it was a shock culturally because, when you move to the down south, there's all these issues. There's all these all this kind of cultural baggage that you don't expect coming from the Midwest. I mean, I had black guys that I called uncle. I just didn't tell a difference. And moving down south, it was like all of a sudden I was aware of racism, and I was aware of going to public school in South Carolina. There was like stuff going on that was not the greatest in terms of cultural and sensitivity and stuff.
Sheets on their head type stuff, or
Yep. Yeah. So it was just kind of eye opening. So I spent my freshman year just kind of like flying under the radar and trying to just make as little noise as possible.
Interesting. You had to be creative.
Yeah.
Adapt. Did you guys have any family rituals that kind of helped seed the foundation to like stay, safe, or in your mind safe, that you drawn to in those kind of sticky situations, if you will? If you went to school and you had some beef with somebody, did you know that Friday nights we had pizza night with the family and we just reconnected, or was it just
no? I mean, I had a great high school kind of family experience. There was like the normal conflict with dad and everything, but I knew that the family was always there for me. And
was
I always
he an integral part of your life as well?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What
did he do?
From day one.
For sure. What did he do?
So he's a nurse as well.
He's a nurse. Is that how they met?
No, it's funny. My mom didn't become a nurse until we were almost out of the house. And so she was kind of a stay-at-home mom throughout that. So she was like the rock of the family. And then
as most mothers are, actually.
Yeah. So that was it.
So did you play any sports?
Oh man, no.
No. Were you a creative young man as well? Did you start drawing? And
I was super into sketching when I was in
sketching. What?
Star
Cartoons?
Wars mostly.
Heck yeah,
Star
man.
Wars. Calvin and Hobbes a little bit, right? Because I like to mimic the style there, and I was super into that. But episode 1 was coming out, and I was a huge fan. Even though looking back, it's kind of a horrible movie, but I was like, oh my god! So I have sketchbooks full of these like Star Wars characters.
You still have them?
Oh yeah. You don't throw those away.
Yeah, of course not.
Did you throw yours away?
They get lost in moves.
Oh no!
I have some.
It's a tragedy.
Yeah, I have some.
But from an innocent perspective, those movies are, awesome at that age. But you look back and, there's a lot of movies from Disney. I look back and I'm like, wow, they got away with that?
Yeah. Oh my God. All dogs go to heaven. If you look back on that, there's like strippers and cigars and all sorts of stuff in that.
It's the best. That's why I watch them now.
It's a movie for adults.
So you go through high school. Where did you end up for college?
So first I went to Clemson. And Clemson is a school in South Carolina.
It's a pretty big school.
Yep.
It's a great school.
Then I decided I didn't like Clemson, so I transferred for a girl. But I transferred.
Best kind of transfer.
Yeah.
Best and worst.
So I transferred to our rivals, USC, which is in South Carolina. It's the real USC, not this University of Southern California.
Shots fired.
BS
I didn't go there
over here.
For all my buddies out there, shots fired.
Go Gamecocks. But so I transferred over there. It was mostly for a girl, but honestly, like Clemson's creative program, I signed up for this graphic arts thing, and they spent more time talking about printing presses than they did the actual creative process. So I was like, I'm just not drawn to that, and my girlfriend was going to USC anyway, so that's what happened there.
See ya.
Yep.
So how did that? How did you finish school there at USC?
Yep.
What did the first job after that look like?
So
did you go right into the digital,
kind of
creative world, or?
Yeah, kind of. So basically, in my junior year, I had bounced around within USC's many creative departments. I actually didn't know design was a career, to be honest, in those days. I blame the public education system in South Carolina, but I didn't know graphic design existed as a career. So I bounced around at USC between like journalism and media arts and advertising, and I literally switched my major 5 or 6 times in those 2 years. And every time I switched, I always was drawn more towards the design side. Like I was creating things in Photoshop or creating things in Illustrator when the professors were asking me to write things. And I would always have these beautiful presentations instead of focusing on the actual headline and tagline that the advertising professor wanted. So somewhere along the line, I discovered this internship at a company called Post No Bills. And they're a creative agency in Columbia, South Carolina. And so my junior year, I applied for this internship, showed up to the interview in a suit and tie because I had no idea what I was doing.
Because you're super special.
Yeah, exactly. And I walked in and I realized I had made a huge mistake because everybody was wearing T-shirts and jeans and stuff like that. And I just
didn't get
totally
the memo.
Yeah.
Well, he did get the memo today. Cause,
yeah, we're all coordinating.
Black
shirts.
We look good. We look real good. So you show up with a suit and tie.
Yeah, I have my resume printed out. I've got my hair gelled.
Nice.
Because I had hair those days. But I sit down across from this creative director. And this woman, she was in her 40s, kind of like hippie. She went to Ringling School of Design. And she was the creative director for the whole business. And she was like, okay, well, let me see your portfolio. And I said, what's that? I had no idea what a portfolio was. And I read the internship description and said it was for design, but I didn't fully understand what that meant. So, she was like, okay, well, I guess we can just kind of talk and go through the rest of the interview. But I could tell right from there, I was just like, this is not going to happen. Well, it turns out for some reason I made an impression on her, and she was like, put together some of your work. I know you said you've done some assignments for school. If you can bring those in tomorrow, and just so that I can have something to look at, that'd be fantastic. So I was like, cool, bet. Stayed up all night, did all new projects, and came in with an entire portfolio printed and ready to be reviewed.
In one night.
This guy works.
And I got the job. So
good for you, man.
Starting in junior year, I was working full time at a creative agency as an intern, but I was doing kind of work during the day, school at night, that kind of thing.
I think this is really an interesting point here because, a lot of people think that having all of your T's crossed, your I's dotted, and being perfect, this goes to that point you made earlier. Mm-hmm. Everything has to be perfect to achieve the outcome. You're very much a person that sees a goal, you're mission oriented, and you get there, and then you readapt, readjust, and reset your goal. And that just goes to show that you don't need to be perfect. You can mess up and still succeed. It's just getting your foot in the door, presenting your best self, and sometimes, most of the time, that is good enough.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
What are your thoughts on fake it till you make it?
I hate the phrase, but it's absolutely true.
It's so common these years. People talk about this phrase often, but the mechanism itself.
Yeah, as many times as I've like interviewed experts and I've talked to people who know what they're doing, the more I realize that like not everybody has everything squared away.
Man,
not everybody.
Most
even
don't.
People who say that they're expert in things, like part of my bio is an expert in user experience. Man, I don't think that you can claim that. Not really, right? And it's like,
I think you can, but the rest of us, not so much.
You're doing pretty well today.
You're doing pretty well,
and
my
I guess
man.
that counts as user experience.
Definitely. But you're a humble guy. I see your point, and you're right. There's always room for improvement. I think that's your point, right?
Right.
There's always room for improvement.
So, yeah, I don't like the phrase because I don't think that faking it is a great term for what it's meant for.
Yeah.
I think it's more just keep putting yourself out there, and if you're looking to become an expert in a certain sphere, claim the expertise first, and then seek to improve it. That comes from Blair Enns, Win Without Pitching. It's a great book.
Yeah, solid.
Yeah.
So you're at this design agency. Things are going well. You graduate college. Mm-hmm. You get promoted to a senior position in this agency. And this is where you decide at some point, maybe you can fill in the cracks here, but at some point you decide to take a sabbatical.
Yeah.
You move states and you become a police officer. Was there something about that design position that you were like, man, screw this, I'm out? Or was there a life-changing event that happened that you felt a calling to something else, a new mission, if you will?
It was kind of a combination of things. Like I had just started freelancing, so I saw that there was like potential for creativity outside of the four walls of my cubicle at the time. And I was 2 years out of school at that point, and I was just like, is there more to life than coming and sitting at a desk every day and resizing logos, even if it's for DreamWorks? But
right.
Is there more?
You guys were working at DreamWorks then?
Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah. So there was a lot at stake there. There was a lot on the line. Mm-hmm. That's another thing. To chase your dreams, sometimes you got to give up a real cush position or a real cush design job or whatever have you in whatever career choice you're in to get that end goal. And for you, what was it? A calling? Did you feel the sense of duty?
It's a combination of things. So it's like I saw that I could work outside of an office. So freelancing was a thing. I could take on jobs on the side, and that was cool. The other thing was like I had always kind of felt a draw towards service, tactical service, and I just was like, if I'm going to do this, now is the time. And so I left my job in order to just kind of like pursue some other options and see what was out there. And the month that I left my job was the month that the 2008 recession hit. So it made the decision really, really easy for me because all of the freelancing work dried up. There was no design jobs anywhere to be had.
Were you able to anticipate that?
No, not at all. I was kind of blindsided. It wasn't dramatic because I was already kind of like, okay, this is going to be a little bit scary being out on my own, and we'll figure it out as we go.
But it wasn't a problem because it's a government job, right? Steady income,
right?
Benefits.
So walked into the police job within a month or two after leaving the spot at Post No Bills, and I had lofty goals and ambitions. You know, I was like watching 24, seeing Jack Bauer.
Oh, heck yeah.
His knapsack.
Gonna kick down
Maybe
doors.
I need to rephrase my answer.
Round
Maybe
him
it's
up.
like the Jack Bauer satchel.
There you go.
There we go.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That was
so
nice.
I was watching that show. I was like, I could do that, right?
For sure.
Look at this guy. No. So I started at the top. I applied for the CIA, and then I applied for the FBI,
nice.
and then I applied for state investigative
holds
departments.
barred.
And, I just worked my way down until finally a local police department decided to hire me.
Well, you shoot for the stars and you
right.
settle for whatever you can get at that point, you know.
Yeah.
Early on, it's pretty typical.
That's great life advice. Just
It is.
generally, it applies everywhere.
And it also says a lot about you as well.
Yeah.
In a good way. Sorry, that whatever, no, a good way. He strives for the best.
Yeah,
that's
this guy
what that
gets it.
says. And but sometimes to get to that point, you kind of have to work your way through. You're not going to get the dream job
Right.
from a cold turkey. You know, I'm coming in, guys, and
Right.
we're doing this. Sometimes you got to work your way up. So I read somewhere you got a Best Markman award here. What were you using, and who were you against?
Sure. So
Is this guy Smitty something of importance to this?
Yes. So Smitty is one of my best friends, my dearest friend. I met him in the academy.
Okay.
He was a Marine captain before he left the Marines and signed on to the Savannah Police Department.
Wow.
So he and I went through the academy together, and I had never fired a weapon at all, period, before
Ooh,
the
that
academy.
Stings for him even more, huh?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
This is just awesome. But I had never fired a weapon, and it surprised me every time. So that when the slide rock back and the recoil hit, it was a
Right.
surprise. Because it was a surprise, that actually makes you a better shot because you're not anticipating the recoil.
True.
So if you take a weapon to the range and you're
So it was your first shot?
it was just the first time I had ever fired a weapon. So we went through
God.
weeks and weeks of weapons
What kind
training.
of weapon was it?
It was a Glock.
That's
really?
why.
Yeah.
That's why. So
Of course.
okay. So
Yeah.
sidearm.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, when you go to the range and you're sending rounds downrange, if you're kind of grouping
Yeah.
is down and to the left, that means you're anticipating the recoil if you're
absolutely.
right-handed, and that means you're trying to hold the gun down
As it recoils.
as
back.
it recoils. Really, you're supposed to let it surprise you. So because I was a clean slate, our firearms instructor was really delighted because he had just fresh clay to mold. And so through the weeks of the weapons training, it was me and Smitty, neck and neck. And at the final day, final weapons qualification, I beat him. And I beat him by
Heck
3
yeah.
shots.
Take that, Smitty.
Now, he still maintains today that he was just sending rounds through the same hole.
Okay.
And we know that's not the
That's
case.
that's a little
Naturally,
far-fetched
he
there,
would.
Smitty. But so man, how long were you a cop for before joining the military? So you transitioned.
Oh, yeah. So
Were you still trying to get as far away from design at that point, or were you just drawn to a different purpose that the
little bit.
police couldn't give you?
So I went through the academy, and I kind of expected a little bit more in terms of
Interesting.
the boot camp kind of nose in the dirt feeling.
You wanted the real deal.
I wanted the real deal, yeah. So when I got cut loose, I spent 6 months on the street in uniform doing, traffic stops and accidents and domestic and stuff like that. And then I was like, you know what? I'm shipping off, going to the National Guard. And so that's when I joined and spent 6 months in basic training and advanced individual training to be a military police officer.
MP,
definitely
baby.
got the basic training experience there.
Nice, man. Well, before we go any further, man, I just want to thank you for your service. You know, I truly appreciate the sacrifices, even if it's, you know, if it's not deployed out of country, you're still laying your guys' life down, you know, day in and day out. In any scenario, things can happen, especially now with all the mass shootings and whatnot. So us here at, you know, Dimension Software and Call to Action, Ben and Keith, we really appreciate you, man, and we love the military and love the police force. So
Well,
thank
thanks.
you for
Amen.
doing
This
that,
is
man.
for you.
Yeah, seriously.
Thank you.
Well, cheers to
Cheers.
that, man.
Prost.
Cheers. So you join the Army National Guard and eventually get moved into a special operations team. Can you run us through what your roles were? What kind of operations were you guys running and conduct?
Definitely. So once I got back home, obviously I was drilling once a month, and the National Guard thing just kind of got put on cruise control.
Okay.
The unit never got deployed, and I spent 4.5 years in, or 5 years in.
Wow.
And we just never went anywhere. So drilled every weekend, and that was fine. On the civilian front, though, when I came back, I was fit and I was motivated, right? I had lost like 80 pounds through basic training, and I was like, I could run.
Do you have any funny hazing stories real quick from basic training at all?
No, there was nothing about basic that was funny.
Okay.
No, but I have some funny cop stories that we can get into.
Okay. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I'll tell one real quick.
Please do.
Go.
One of the most kind of infamous training officers that we had at our precinct decided to take a vacation. It was his first vacation in probably 20 years. I mean, this guy was old and crusty and grumpy.
Legend.
Yeah, great guy. Love him to death. But he decided to go on vacation. So we got the idea to get some fish and put it in his car before he left.
Oh, solid dudes.
And we forgot about it until the day before he came back. And so it was sitting in the Savannah heat.
Which is humid as well,
14
right?
14 days, yeah.
Oh my God. So it's soaked in the ceiling. It's soaked in the steering wheel.
The whole goal was like to leave it in there for maybe a day or two just to get a fish smell in there. But it smelled so bad that when we opened the door, all three of us, blew
vomited.
chunks.
Oh, yeah.
It was horrible. So we took the fish out, and then we just closed it, and we were like, we'd never tell anybody about this. So Gerber comes back. This is the PTO. He comes back. He gets in his car, and we're watching through the window, and he sits in his car, and then immediately runs out, stuff scattering all over the ground.
So it took him a couple seconds.
It's just
That's how crusty he was.
Oh my God! It's so stinky. It's shocking.
Oh my God! You could have killed the guy.
Seriously,
Heart attack,
seriously.
man.
And the crazy thing is that they
You can smell it from here.
They had to decommission the car.
My God.
They can still smell it today. The legend has
car
it
is somewhere. It still stinks. I can guarantee it.
They probably used that. They probably sent it off to the Marines for training, outdoor conducts with all the vehicles and whatnot. Oh my, or blowing shit up, you know? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so that was fun. But no, so the career back at home, because I was so motivated, all I wanted to do was get drugs and guns and just put all of my effort into that for a couple of months. And a special operations unit kind of saw that activity, and they were like, hey, you want to come hang out with us? So I got to be one of the jump out boys.
There's a calling.
We'd
ride
around with unmarked cars and jump out of minivans and stuff and chase drug dealers. And
what were you guys all equipped with at that point for those types of missions?
This one, we had specialized uniforms because we would get in so many situations. Yeah. Normally, Savannah police wear dress blues, right?
Right.
It's like blue kind of wool, stuffy uniforms. But we had polos and then kind of tactical pants that we would wear.
511 pants or something.
Yeah. Just because we'd get in so many fights and tear up our uniforms and stuff like that.
Jeez Louise.
That was fun. I did that for a year. And from there, I was making narcotics cases on a regular basis. So when I heard of a spot opening up on the counter narcotics team, I was like, oh man, I got to go for it.
Oh yeah, sign me up.
We want to give a shout out to our partner, Dimension Software. This podcast could not be possible without our team of support and the amazing platform to produce this kick-ass content for you guys. Dimension Software is a software engineer and design firm in sunny Santa Monica, California. Technical wizards, creative cowboys, and optimization gurus are just a few titles given to them over the years. Sexy software and happy clients is the model they live by. Whether you're in need of a mobile app to launch your next big startup idea, or to create a new sales funnel for your existing business, or you're opening an e-commerce site and need Shopify experts to help create that juicy SEO, viral content creation, sexy branding, and everything else you need to get your business running smoothly and efficiently. Or hell, just want to grab a beer with some awesome dudes? Check out dimensionsoftware.com or on LinkedIn. This episode is also brought to you by Passwordless Login, an e-commerce plugin that makes customer login process effortless. Here's a crazy fact. In the US alone, a single customer registers over 100 accounts to one email. And guess what? 75% of us duplicate passwords. I know it drives me bonkers going through the password reset process, or even worse, getting locked out of my own account from trying too many times. So stop wasting your customers' time trying to remember security questions like what street my first kiss was on. How the hell am I supposed to remember? So if you're an e-commerce business and want the most secure and customizable login process on the market, visit the Shopify App Store and search Passwordless Login, or email support@dimensionsoftware.com titled Passwordless Login, and they'll get you hooked up. Let them know we referred you in the email with hashtag CTAP for Call to Action Podcast. That's Charlie Tango Alpha Papa, and you'll get up to a 15% discount on your first year subscription.
So you joined this narcotics
agent.
So
I put in for a spot on the narcotics team, and I kind of walked into it. It was
just
like,
instantly boom.
Yeah. So,
do you have any crazy busts or
well,
altercations
the first year and a half I spent on a tactical team. And the tactical team did more like street level drugs. And that was probably the most fun I ever had in my career.
Is it true that sometimes in the confiscation comes recreational use?
Oh, man.
Some of the officers?
I had never seen it. You know, we heard kind of rumors of other officers doing that kind of stuff. But I never experienced that. Like the narcotics team was such a tight-knit group of people that like we just want to get drugs off the street.
Heck,
and it was a game. You know, we had our tallies, like how much cocaine that we've seized and stuff like that.
What was the tally? What did you guys get?
Oh man, it was in the millions of dollars of drugs off the street and funds seized and stuff like that. But
what's the biggest single bust?
Financially, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it, but I can tell you it was $2 to $3 million. Okay. Seized.
Wow.
In cash and bank funds.
Well, what's kind of crazy though is that depending on what cartel that was coming from or group, that's like one hair off the head.
Oh, of course. Yeah. We shut the locals down, which
that's great.
But you know, we're not going up against Mexico.
Exactly.
And Ben and I are still in business here at CTAP, so we hit everything well this morning.
Exactly, man. Exactly.
But no, we do crazy stuff. The tactical team was so much fun because the busts that we would do was mainly like, you know, the investigations were very short. We'd have confidential informants, or we would go undercover, and then pretty much the same day or the next day we would make the bust, which is the arrest. So sometimes we'd do things like pinching a vehicle. Oh yeah. So we'd you know, have a truck in front of the vehicle and then a truck behind it, and then we'd box it in and kind of pinch it so that it didn't go anywhere. And then 18 dudes would pile out of the truck and then rip somebody from the driver's seat, arrest him, check him, put him in our truck, and then an officer would get in their car and they would drive away.
So the movies are sometimes spot on.
Sometimes, yeah. My wife hates it when I watch tactical movies because I'm like, they're doing that wrong.
It's not even the magazine's not even in. It's in backwards. Your finger's not even on the trigger. How is that firing? I know
it's not a clip.
I'm not even. I know. Oh my God, man. I only had to hear that once from an old timer about, we're out in the range and I was like, oh man, how do I put this clip in? When I was first starting, and he goes, son, don't ever call that a goddamn clip again. I was like, yes, sir. It was and I was like, it's a magazine. I get that. So exactly. It's not a clip. So man, this is kind of an interesting turn of events. How did the creative spirit ever leave you while like chasing down these bad guys, or was it something you just blocked off and said, this is my mission now. I'm single path, tunnel vision to catching these bad guys and nothing else matters? Or did you always have the spirit of creativity kind of just knocking at the door saying, hey Ben, let's come home. This is what you're meant to be. You're really good at it. Or
no, I think it was, I've always expressed myself creatively, but I was expressing myself in a totally different way. As far as my career goes, in those days, I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I hadn't lost any friends yet. I hadn't seen the negative effects of being a police officer. I hadn't really kind of internalized what the trauma and the stress were doing to mental states, with my friends yet. So I was like, this is cool. This is fun. I'm getting adrenaline dumps on a daily basis. Let's just keep this rolling. But I was always kind of creative in the background. Like, 2 years in, my wife and I bought a house, and we weren't even married at that point.
Was this the girl you left school to go chase?
Nope.
Okay.
Different girl.
Just clarify.
Sensitive topic there.
Sorry.
God.
Oh, my bad. Edit.
Driving me to drink.
Cut that one out.
I'm kidding.
Well, the good news is we have more.
Yeah. We got lots more where that came from, buddy.
So, but when we bought this house, my wife and I moved in, and this home was exactly the way they built it in 1943.
Oh, okay.
So when we moved in, we put the air conditioning in. We completely renovated it. We moved the kitchen from one room to the next, and we did everything ourselves. So I was running plumbing and doing drywall and all this kind of stuff.
Women love a handy man, let me tell you.
And a beard.
With a big
That's
beard.
right.
Did you have a beard at that time?
Yes, actually.
Good for you.
The narcotics team was where the beard originated.
You kind of had to, yeah.
Yeah.
Be the rough, tough, grimy dude that's just part of the ecosystem, right? You got to blend in.
That's right.
You don't want to stand out.
I always found some way to like express myself creatively, and in those days it was the house. It was like interior design versus anything. So,
wow. So did you guys? You end up flipping that house?
Oh yeah.
I read up.
Yeah.
Made a little money.
The beautiful thing was, the year before we moved, they put a Whole Foods. It was walking distance from the house.
Oh, good for
so
you.
Property value went sky high, and it was just like,
thank you,
yes.
Whole Foods. So do you support Whole Foods for that
absolutely.
now? You shop there still to this day?
Yes.
All right.
Absolutely.
So how did you find your way back from all of this crazy adrenaline rush? I'm an adrenaline junkie myself, as is he. It's hard to quit something that you really love.
Yeah.
My career before getting into this, I was a professional athlete, played soccer for a bit.
Oh, wow.
And man, the adrenaline rush you'd get from playing in front of a lot of people and things of that nature, and getting in there, after early mornings with the team.
Yeah.
And man, there's nothing like scoring a nice goal in front of a nice crowd. Is something you can't replicate. And it's something I had to give up. It's pretty hard.
Wow.
Did you have a similar feeling of like, man, I got to give this? Did something happen that you had to get back into the creative world? Was it a friend that was struggling with some mental problems, and you're like, man, this might happen to me, or something natural?
Like the previous jump, it was just tons of factors.
Right.
I got another promotion. I was working major cases the last year and a half of my career there. So we were running wiretaps, and we were working with the DEA and a couple of other federal agencies. And the thing about running wiretaps is it's absolutely no adrenaline. So I actually had time to like think and process. And I started to notice things about my friends that I had kind of left on patrol or left in the tactical team. And I could see, substance abuse problems starting to surface, alcoholism, and, people were getting divorced. And I kind of made the realization in major case that like when you're a cop, it's like something breaks. Either your body breaks, your mind, or your marriage. Like one of those has to break. And so now I was aware of the problem, and I was kind of like looking for a solution. But running wiretaps, the crazy thing is that there has to be somebody manning the phones at all times, 24 hours a day.
True.
So we were sitting there in the wire room while the drug dealers were sleeping. And, as you can imagine, these guys were sleeping a lot. And so the phones would just not ring for 12 hours a day. So there's a lot of time to do stuff. So,
right.
My buddies, I tell this story a lot, but they would work out in the little gym that we had in the room or watch movies or something like that. And I worked. I found freelance clients to work for.
No joke.
Yeah, I would jump on Odesk or Upwork, whatever it was called in those days. I would jump on the platform and I would be in the wire room designing logos and stuff.
That's awesome. What were your prices back then?
Oh, like $50. Seriously. And I was
just to get the name in the door.
This is 3 or 4 hours of work. Oh my God.
And that's an interesting point you make there, because as we kind of transition on how you got started with your freelance business and eventually transition that to being full time and building that into an agency, growing a business is tough.
Oh yeah.
And I'd like to kind of get your thoughts on platforms like Upwork and Fiverr. We sometimes get clients who need some work done, resurrection work we call it, from those platforms. And it's really tough for us. It puts us in a tough spot because while you could try and finagle what's been built, typically it's not done with any technique whatsoever. So it's really better to just start from the scratch, and they don't want to hear those types of proposals, if you will. Sure. So a lot of the time we can't even help anyone. One, because they don't want to hear that. They feel like they don't want to admit that they made a mistake, etc. And but we also don't want to get stuck in a rut of doing endless work. So at the end of the day, you pay for what you get, right? And while you could find some needles in the haystack in those platforms, most of the time it's not the case. So it's always a smarter decision hiring a professional agency such as the-futur, or we'd like to think that we're professional.
We do okay.
No, we do. We've worked on some pretty cool projects. Not to toot our own horn, but we have a small group of core team members that we use. We don't outsource, and we work really efficiently. But when you're starting to first try to find those clients, did your freelance business utilize those platforms?
Yeah.
Or in what ways to get traction going did you guys try and
get
clients?
I was in Savannah, Georgia, and honestly, I had no goals of starting a business in those days. I was just like,
interesting.
Here I have all this time. How could I make some money? And then, I looked into literally starting a donut shop and all sorts of different weird business ideas. And I was like, let me just make some logos in the meantime. And the platform at the time, I think it was Odesk, which I think it's now Upwork. And I wouldn't say it's inherently bad or good. I think it's just, it exists. And the people on there are kind of in a bad position because here they are, they're trying to make money doing what they love, and they're almost spoiled by the way that they bring in new clients because they're just served to them. Right. But that comes at a cost because the clients that are on Odesk are typically looking for a budget buy, right? They're looking for a deal. They can't afford to hire other, more professional creative agencies. And so what Odesk does, the unfortunate thing is it trains service providers the wrong way of doing business. It's like, absolutely. In those days, I was looking for more volume, and I didn't even believe that I could charge more. And so, I had all these kind of habits from using the platform that I think are dastardly to starting a business.
And valuing yourself.
Right, exactly. So like I said, it was a great way to get started, and eventually I was making more money on that platform than I was on my day job.
Right.
So it made a really good bridge for me.
How long did that take?
To jump? Probably about a year.
Okay.
Yeah, I did both for about a year.
You just hit it hard every single day while you were listening to boring conversation. Did you ever hear any funny conversations while being on the wiretap, or anything that stands out? Like, wow, that was memorable.
I literally can't say anything about that stuff. I'm still under NDA, but there was one time that I heard a friend on the phone.
Interesting.
And I was like freaking out because I recognized him.
Wow.
And it turns out he was just doing a traffic stop.
Okay.
And the phone was just still on.
And I was going to say,
freaked me out.
You can discuss us too, because we're here today. So there's no confidentiality.
Exactly.
Real quickly, just to circle back on that point. So like at Dimension Software here, we get oftentimes a lot of what we consider rescue projects, and we get them because we're quite good at them. So it's a little bit of a
Catch-22.
Yeah, it's a little bit of like a virtuous cycle, and it's a little bit of a vicious cycle, right? Because while we're good at it, and we've got a little bit of like people know us for being able to rescue these projects. At the end of the day, sometimes they're very hard to to work forward without maybe starting from scratch, kind of like what Ben was saying earlier. Would you have any advice for taking the next step for kind of breaking a little bit of that cycle?
Moving out of rescue projects?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Landing larger. And we'll get a little bit into that as well. I mean, we can talk about it now too, but landing those bigger projects. We've worked on some bigger projects, and I guess also for listeners and people that are building their small businesses and from both the client side and from, the agency side, what would you tell somebody that's trying to break out of those?
Because there's a ton of people out there, kind of in the same place.
Right.
Precisely.
So your name gets thrown around as somebody who can rescue bad projects or projects that have gone wrong, right? And what you've done is you've stumbled into a niche. And so I think that, not knowing very much about what's going on, maybe the solution is to break out of that niche and pick a new niche. Right. Yeah, exactly. To specialize in something else. So a lot of times, like the question I get asked all the time, hands down, how do I find bigger clients? How do I find clients? For sure. And every time that, somebody asks me that, my response is, well, who are your clients? Because if you don't know who they are, you're not going to know where they go.
Precisely.
If you specialized in like health and wellness, you would know exactly where those people go to get their information. You'd know what conferences to attend or speak at, even better. You'd know exactly what meetup groups to join, what they kind of like are struggling with, like medical people, marketing and HIPAA, and it's a disaster. So the content writes itself, exactly where to target them online. So knowing who your clients are is by far the easiest way to find bigger clients.
And are you guys doing this also at the-futur and you yourself?
No, not at all. So we're not taking on any more client work. We haven't all year.
Wow.
We totally moved away from that.
Is that because of the channel? And we'll dive into that in just a sec as we kind of move. So I guess before you answer that, how did, because this story is fascinating, man. It's twists and turns and it's a roller coaster. So, you guys now have heard the word future. If you don't know them, go check out Blind and the-futur. They're, in my opinion, and many others, the FC Barcelona, I'm a football fan, obviously, or Manchester City, highest Premier League division of the creative space. It's amazing what they do. They work with some of the best companies out there. How did they take notice to you? What did you do to catch the eye of such a big agency such as them?
Yeah, that's a great question.
From a different state. I mean, from across the country.
Yeah. So eventually, like I said, I was making enough money to support myself through the freelance kind of career.
Did you have a daughter at the time as well?
No, I was married. But nobody else was in the house.
But you still have to take care of was your wife working as well at the time?
Yep.
What was she doing?
She worked in a hospital.
As well?
Admin.
Okay.
Yeah. But I was making enough money to support myself, and I got on the phone with Smitty, and he had previously left the department to go work at a different department. He was like, dude, what are you doing? You have so much talent. Why are you even there? And I was like, no, it's secure. And then he brought up a friend of ours who had just gotten shot, and then brought up another friend who committed suicide, and then brought up another friend who was basically banned from being hired anywhere because, disciplinary action from a really corrupt leader in the department had stuck to him. And he was like, this thing is not permanent. Nothing is stable. And you got so much talent. I don't know why you're still here. And that was kind of the kick that I needed to make the leap.
Right.
And so made the leap and started freelancing kind of full time. And I was just churning through work. I mean, at one point I had like 53 clients, and
wow.
each one of those clients had multiple projects, and I was working 18-hour days. I was just trying to grind it out. Just me.
One guy.
Just one guy. Yeah, working on Odesk, just
pumping them out,
just cranking them out.
Were they beautiful pieces of art?
Always, every time.
Yeah, nailed it.
Still are.
Yeah, so it was stressful, and it was like starting a business. It sucks. Like the whole process sucks and is awesome, and all that wrapped up in the one. But I was really I was looking online for solutions. I literally typed in the Google search bar how to find more clients, because I believe the solution was to get more volume, even more than I was already doing, and somehow figure out how to do the work faster. And somewhere along the lines in my searches, I stumbled upon what was then the school, and it was Chris Doe.
SKOOL.
Yep. It was Chris Doe and Jose Caballer, and they were making YouTube videos about this week in web design. And so I stumbled into them, and Chris was giving business advice, and I was like, my God, this guy's a genius. And he was telling us, you need to charge more, and he started listing out some of the rates that he was charging, which were 1,000 times literally more than I was charging. And so I reached out to him, and I was like, hey man, just wanted to let you know, I've been burning the midnight oil. I've been really struggling, and the content is making all the difference in the world. Please don't stop. Thank you for what you're doing. That's it. I just wanted to send a thank you note.
Right.
And he hits me back. This Emmy award-winning designer, Chris Doe, hits me back the next day. He was like, hey man, thanks for your note. You want to chat? I was like,
yeah.
In person? Like what? On the phone? Like a live, real conversation?
On the internet?
Your hands start shaking. No,
Beads
he's
of
a big
sweat.
deal.
Yeah.
He's a huge deal.
I mean, this is the guy that was working with some crazy clients.
He's the man, the myth, and the legend.
Yep. So we jump on the phone, and this turned into a mentoring session right there. And one of the first things he told me to do, he's like, I'll give you advice. It's up to you if you want to take it or not. And I just decided just to say yes to anything he told me to do. Because if he...
Yes, man.
Yeah. I was like, if he could do this and spend 23 years growing this incredible business and, making it in LA, which is the toughest place.
Even
it's
tougher.
Just crazy. And so there was, I had actually moved before this conversation to Richmond, Virginia. And it was just kind of a fresh start,
wipe the slate
clean kind of thing. So there I was sitting in Richmond, Virginia, getting advice from this legendary designer. And one of the first things he told me was, you have to fire all of your clients. And I was like, hold on. Wait.
Whoa.
I'll do whatever you say, except...
Where am I going to bring in any income?
Exactly. So he was like, you're not making enough money from those clients to make ends meet. And he had me crunch my numbers, and I was actually making less than $3 an hour.
Ouch.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And he's like, you need to raise your rates, get on the phone with every single one of your clients and say, hey, look, I have to run a profitable business. I haven't done a great job of that in the past. My rates are increasing to, I think it was like $100 an hour at that point.
Peanuts to what they are now.
I'd love to keep you on as a client, and if you can meet the new rate, I'd love to work together more. But if not, I'd be happy to make some recommendations. So I made 53 calls in one day.
How many recommendations were you making?
50.
Whoa.
Only
That's
3
not unsurprising.
clients.
But that's a gut check, man.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the, with Upwork and a lot of these platforms, we've kind of noticed the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And with a lot of these rescue projects, it's the kind of what you're talking about, you raise the rates and sometimes these people fall off. It can be, a pivoting moment for a business.
Yeah. So there it was, 50 clients down, 3 clients stuck around.
Hey, those are 3 solid leads right there.
They were
not
amazing
leads,
people.
sorry, clients. Yeah, they're already clients at this point.
Yeah, amazing people, amazing companies, and the the amount that I was making from those 3 clients was actually more than I was making from all 53 combined.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So he knew what he was talking about.
He knew exactly what he was talking about. And at that point, all of a sudden, I was still really quick, right? I was still really quick at doing the work. And so I could nail the work that they were giving me, and then had time to network and had time to really look into the local area and figure out who my clients could be. But the mentorship with Chris lasted for 2 or 3 years in Richmond.
Wow.
And
was that time period, can I ask about this, him and Jose's partnership
sure.
split?
Go for it.
What kind of, did that happen during that period? Because I know from my research, I've actually followed Chris myself.
Oh, nice.
I'm the creative director here. We're trying to rebrand Dimension Software after we had some large projects in the previous years that were doing quite well. We thought, this is cush. We don't really need to focus as hard on that. Well, when those started to dwindle and transition, we realized, man, brand is where we're going to be in the long term. We need to start building that out. And so that's where him and I sat down over a few beers and said, man, what do we got to do to get our brand built? And so I started looking on YouTube, how the heck do I do this? So, the likes of Chris Do, the likes of Gary Vee, and a few others that I look up to as advice I want to listen to, and it's coming from a good place. I realized, man, we got a podcast. We got to give a facelift to our website as well, which we did. We created a native app on the App Store, which you don't find a lot of those actually company apps on the App Store. So we're kind of wizards in that. I'm a
badass business card.
Yeah, it's a badass business card, exactly. But going off of that, how do partnerships break off like that? It's I know we're taking a little bit of a side road here, but it's really, I've always wondered, because he hasn't ever talked about it. What happened between the two of them? It was just a partnership that doesn't work. Are they still friends?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So somewhere in that 2 years where he was mentoring me, the partnership between he and Jose just kind of dissolved. And I think that really at the core of it was the vision for the company. Chris is kind of like, maybe I'm like Chris in that he wants to achieve a huge, massive goal. The mission of the future is to touch 1 billion lives, to help 1 billion people make money doing what they love.
Well, you're 2 souls here, 1 step closer to that goal, brother.
Nice.
Seriously.
That's great. So, he has these big lofty dreams, and I don't know that they matched Jose's vision for the company. I think that they're just very, very different people. Even though they went to school together, the partnership caused friction in ways that was a little bit unavoidable.
And affected the business.
Yeah. So they decided to part ways, but Jose's still very much involved in the business. So we still carry his products. Core is his kind of strategy framework.
And it's a great one.
Yeah. And he's, still working on that. He still gives webinars and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So he and Chris are still really good friends.
It's kind of a really cool perspective to be able to internalize and reflect and self-reflect in a way that you're able to disassociate yourself from your own business. That's really tough, especially with someone at that level. Chris Do could just say, I'm Chris and you're going to do what I say, and I'm going to get here, and I don't really need to. He honestly could probably just cruise control and still be very successful at this point.
Oh, yeah.
But that's not him. And to get to those, you need to step away from yourself, self-reflect and say, okay, what's better for the business? And sometimes it's, man, I gotta have a tough conversation with a tough, really, really close friend of mine and break off a partnership that's probably been going on for a long time. Those are hard decisions to make, but that's a sign of a good leader.
And the beautiful thing is that both of them are happier. So it's
it was the right decision.
They're good friends still, and it really was, because the relationship that was kind of tied to the business was what was causing the friction. So when they got rid of that, everything really smoothed out. So it's good.
You have tons of experience leading teams and working with teams, growing teams, blossoming, as we would say. Could you give us maybe some tips and some techniques, things that you do working with people to just kind of always elevate the team?
Tips and tricks for elevating the team. So one thing I've always believed in is like, when you're bringing people on, whether they're freelancers or full-time, we have to make an investment in them. And so anytime somebody wants to learn something on the team, the budget is wide open. If they want to go to a conference, if they want to go through some online training or, something like that, we're always supportive of that. I've sent our entire marketing team through several different programs this year. And I think that the investment in the person that's sitting across from you is an investment that just continues to pay dividends, because not only are they growing personally and getting better at their job, but it also just kind of instills a sense of loyalty. Absolutely. The other thing, and this is something that we need to do better at, is celebrating smaller wins. So when you have a company like the Future, you've got Chris, who's the CEO, I'm the COO, Matthew's the CCO, and then Greg is the Chief Creative Director. All of us are constant improvers. And so we are all trying to make things better. And that can kind of lead to a culture of critique, which is not always a bad thing. But in terms of morale, if you're not celebrating those small wins, it can be a little much for the team. So that's something I'm aware of that we just need to improve.
So to take it back just a little bit, just to kind of fill in the gaps here, you've created your own agency. You've been mentored by Chris for a couple years now. Things have been improving. What was the jump? How did the jump happen, rather, to get from the move from, Richmond, Virginia to Los Angeles? Did he offer you a job because he saw all of this potential and how you've been applying all of his methods and listening and learning and improving, and he said, man, I got to have this guy, and he offered you a contract? Or how did that go down?
Yeah, so those 2 years were probably the wildest ride of my life, because the next call with Chris, he told me to hire somebody, and that was like, I couldn't even imagine.
Right.
For what role?
Just anybody. He was like, get an intern, get an assistant, somebody that can do the work that you don't want to do. And so I hired an intern, and
that's a long list.
Yeah.
Yeah. We mull over a similar list always.
And I didn't believe that I could afford it. Right. And he was like, go hire somebody, make sure that you have enough time to work on the business and not in the business. So again, sage advice. And I was a little bit in disbelief, because here I was like, kind of broke. I didn't think that I could pull on anybody at least on a part-time basis. I just didn't think the money would line up. And interviewed some people, and there was this guy. He had been working outside of the industry for a couple of years, and great designer, but he had just recently been through an accident. He was working in this mill where they were refinishing barnwood for reclaimed stuff, and he was on a planer and planed off 2 fingers.
Oh,
so he was like,
"Oh no!"
He was like, "Yeah." He held up his hand and had 2 fingers. And he was like, "I just want to get it back in the industry, man. If you can give me a chance to just do work, I'll do whatever I can." And so I was able to hire this really qualified designer for basically minimum wage, which I couldn't even afford at that point.
My goodness. Did you take out a loan?
No. I mean, we made it work.
Have you taken a business loan?
No, never.
Even at the Future?
Never. Always been self-funded.
Wow.
So we, it was me and Brian, and we went to work, and it just showed me that by hiring people, you're actually giving them a chance to work on something that they want to work on. So if you don't have the budget, if you're only looking at minimum wage, put it out there, because chances are there's a really qualified applicant somewhere that just needs a shot.
And they would love to work on that project.
Yeah, they just need a shot. Same thing with freelancers. It's like, hey, if you're working on a $5,000 website and you need somebody to build it for $1,000, put it out there, because you may find somebody who just needs that kind of first at bat,
right? Who
will nail it out of the park.
How do you sort of screen these people to know, hey, this guy has the ability to pull this through, see it to the end?
Portfolio is key. I mean, that's it. I don't care what school you went to. I don't care what your background is, but you show me the work, and that's the proof that I need.
Yeah. Listen up, guys.
So you're starting to build your business.
Yep.
At what point did you get it to, and then what was the transition to this crazy big agency that was calling your name?
So we were 5 people. So we grew from 1 to 5 people in the span of a year and a half, and got an office in downtown Richmond, like right on West Broad Street, which is right in the middle of downtown. It's great, like 3rd floor office. We had a window, like one.
That's massive.
So everyone stood there at lunchtime, breathing in the sunlight and fresh air.
We like rotated out, like
nice.
What's the window this week?
Nice. Rock,
great,
paper,
man.
scissors for it.
No, but the projects went from $50 logos to $40,000, identity engagements.
Okay.
So we were able to really get into the local sphere, and we started finding a niche around, working with healthcare. So a lot of the bigger budget jobs were nursing homes and some elder care stuff. And we started to stumble into this niche of people that really needed help bringing their business into the 21st century, that were just kind of laggards on the bell curve. So, the trajectory of Burnt Creative was really positive. And we got to a point where 2 of my people were getting ready to leave. One was leaving for family stuff to move back home, and then the other one had found a better job, which is great. I love to see that.
Celebrate.
That's the stepping stone.
Yep.
Love to
have to
see
celebrate
people
those
grow.
as well.
And it was just like, at this point, I could tell that there was a transitioning happening. Chris and I were talking, once or twice a week at least. And we had already talked about going into projects together, because I was starting to field pretty big projects. I was on an RFP for $1 million ad campaign, and made it all the way to the very last phase. It was me and one other company. So we were starting to think about working together. And that was when the split happened with Jose on his end.
Okay.
So he was like, listen, I see you out there. I see the work that you're doing. I was building websites and doing brand identity at the time. He's like, it's great work. He's like, I need somebody to run digital projects for blind. Would that interest you? And I was like, absolutely. I was actually calling you to see if you wanted to work together. It was like kind of, we were both thinking the
Stars
same
aligned.
thing.
Fate.
Yeah. And so he acquired my company and moved me, my family, and one employee out to LA.
Can you talk about what that acquisition was?
Or even just materiality.
It was decent.
Yeah, it was fun. It was more like
That's
an
awesome,
acqui-hire, but
That's a big deal, man.
it is a big deal, and I felt really, really good about just my trajectory. 3 years going from freelancing out of my garage to now moving to LA to be the digital director of Blind.
That plays a
crazy.
lot to your mission-based personality, though. And I think
True.
that's been shown here throughout this whole conversation. You see a goal and you go for it. And also, when you do that and you're extremely focused, people notice. And when people notice, good things can really come from that, because people talk and people really respect the hustle, the grind, and executing. And you were doing just that. And I think that just goes to show and just, parallels everything else that you've done in your life, that this was the next mission and the next calling. And he saw the benefit and talent and what you could bring to the table.
Yep.
That's awesome. So you eventually move out here.
Yeah, so that was, we shook on the deal in September of 2016. And
Did you guys meet up in person for that?
Oh yeah,
to
I flew out
sit
here.
down?
I'd been flying out here every quarter almost before that. And so we struck the deal in September of 2016, and I waited until January 2017 to make the move out. So moved everybody out, closed the business down in Richmond. That was a whole. If you think starting a business is hard, closing it
down.
Oh my God.
Tough, huh?
Well, there's a process for this.
Yeah, it is, but it sucks.
Yeah. Were you able to kind of reclaim any of those clients and sort of, because in the digital nature of the internet, everything can be remote?
Yeah, no, I actually continued working with one client just on a freelance basis for about a year after I made the move out here.
So this is your client.
Yeah.
But probably didn't need to after that, right? I mean,
no, I just
Blind
wanted
is
to
a
make sure.
full stack.
I wanted to make sure that the client was taken care of, because it had happened like right at the finishing point of the project, and there was a lot of the afterwork that they needed done.
Upkeep.
So it was more like I wanted to take care of the client. And even at 40, 50 grand, that didn't even come close to Blind's minimum engagement.
We have a similar playbook here at Dimension. We make sure all of our clients are entirely squared away always. It doesn't matter the circumstances.
It's really important.
Sometimes
reputation.
You get calls later, years down the line, or of a new client, potential client, and it's a referral from someone else that you took
after
care
years.
of.
After years. Yeah.
And it's really important. It goes a long way. So I can imagine there must have been a lot of fear in this transition. I mean, fear is a profound human emotion, right? And I think a lot of people take it as a negative connotation, but in reality, you can really take that emotion that could be crippling, but you can utilize it as a weapon in a way to shoot you to the next level and use it to empower you. And were these some of the things that you experienced? I mean, what fears did you take on or feel moving from Richmond, Virginia to Los Angeles, to the hub, I would say, of entertainment?
Yeah.
And you guys work with a lot of very large clients, the largest. There had to be a lot of pressure on your shoulders to, produce.
Yeah. So part of the deal, me coming out, was to help grow the future. And it was the month that I moved out to LA that we actually named it the future.
Interesting.
And so
was it your idea to take the E off?
No, that was not my idea at all. It's the future with no E. No, but the transition, when we talk about fear, right? And you were asking about working with bigger clients and stuff like that. Obviously, there's like a little bit of like edginess that comes on when I think about working with a bigger client.
And there's a lot of money at stake there.
Yeah, it's true. But those were hurdles. Those were thresholds that I moved past really, really quickly. So it was like the first $250,000 job. I was kind of freaked out about, right? I would
say so.
Really wanted to make sure that I didn't drop the ball. But then I realized that a $250,000 job is really the same thing as a $50,000 job. It's the same thing as a $5,000 job.
Just a change in the materiality.
Yeah. And you're really not even you're doing more research, and you're probably putting a lot more effort into the aesthetics, but the difference between the client dynamic, it's nothing. I mean, I had $50 clients that were worse than $250,000 clients.
We've experienced very similarly.
Recently.
Yeah, at Dimension Software, yes.
It's all about the way that the client values the work. Because if the client values the work at a certain dollar point, then that's,
And have you got tips? Because oftentimes, we get a lot of clients who in the past have worked with people, for free almost. A lot of these people are in different countries, and they have just an entirely different work ethic and very different expectations. So just kind of bringing them into reality, bringing them back into kind of your space, your value of time. Have you got any techniques that sort of work there and can smooth that process out for our listeners?
I would say, just to add on to that, my opinion, maybe it's just learning to set the standard early. Would you say that's semi-accurate? Sometimes we, a lot of the time we do a good job of that. I mean, this is just one person. So, but I would say it was our fault for not setting the standard. And it was a successful project. I mean, the app works well, especially we worked within the budget she had, et cetera. But she expected much, much more in terms of, the ongoing free work. And that's where it just was like, look, we agreed to this proposal, et cetera. We executed, we delivered much more than we even agreed to. And you're still demanding all of these
10 more features down the line. And starting a new app.
But regardless, I think for us, it was just, we need to get better at, and this is just being open and honest, we make mistakes. Everybody does. And I think I need to do a better job of setting that standard much sooner, right off the bat. Because sometimes I can be a real bubbly guy and really want to get to know the client and be real close with them and hang out and really get to know what their pain points are. And sometimes, you got to be a little bit right to the point, direct.
I think clarity is what you're looking for. It's like making sure that the clients have a good understanding of the scope and where the scope stops. And I think that that can be done with education, because if the client doesn't ask this question, I always make sure to surface this in the early conversations. Right. The client should always ask, where does this go wrong? And if they don't ask, I make sure to say, all right, I want to talk about where this goes wrong. Based on my experience, when we wrap these jobs, there's a lot of follow-up things that could be done. And what I want to do is either front load those or plan for this, because I don't want to leave you hanging, but I also want to make sure that you understand that at some point the scope stops, and then after we probably move to more an hourly rate. However you want to structure that agreement, but
setting
making sure
the
that's
expectations
kind of up front. Yeah.
What is kind of the ratio of work you guys, sort of enjoy, upfront versus retainer versus,
So back in the day, I loved retainers because it was just a consistent income. It was very predictable.
Absolutely.
Hands down, retainers are the most conflict-ridden contracts out there, because it always comes down to the measurement of the work. So the clients are always going to expect a little bit more work than last month. And then you're going to kind of expect a little bit more money than last month, or a little bit less work, or even just to keep things the same, And so it's what does an hour mean? And if you're charging on a retainer basis, something has to limit that, right? It either has to be hours or deliverables or scope. And that always seems to cause conflicts eventually in the end on a retainer. So with Blind, we moved exclusively towards project-based fees. So just one-time flat fixed amounts per project. That requires a lot of expectation setting, because you have to understand where the scope starts and ends and what happens in between.
So a lot more planning, and then V2 would be the same thing, repeat.
Yeah.
Okay. And
we started fielding a lot of inquiries for digital jobs, software and all sorts of stuff. There's actually a series on our YouTube channel about how we lost $1 million job.
Saw that.
Yeah, we
It was painful. But that was my first experience with trying to price something on sprints, which I'm really curious about, especially in the software and the digital world, because sprints are a way that you can limit you can give them a fixed fee, but you can break up the payments over time so that it's not such a burden on the client. But then you can also agree on the scope ahead of each sprint. So you're front loading the conflict.
Yes.
And then you're agreeing on the scope and deliveries.
Setting the expectations.
Yep. Then delivering
every
it through
single
the month.
section.
And then,
The challenge is always with sprints optimizing for throughput, because oftentimes when front loading that, there can be technical debt sort of accrued, especially on the tail end, things that weren't foreseen.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Things that run longer than they should have, when especially engineers focus on kind of that shorter, that maybe more pedantically focused sprint,
Sure.
if you will. So it's just a trade-off.
Yeah. And I forget what book. I think it was Scrum. I think it was the Scrum book where he talks about billing by sprints. And I love the kind of sales pitch that he has in there. Right. He's like, hey, I think this is going to take 12 sprints, but if at any point during this project you're happy with it, you can cancel, and it's just a 20% fee of whatever's left.
Oh, which is wonderful for the client.
There's a podcast. There's a podcast called Ditching Hourly.
Oh, cool.
And man, I can't remember the host. I actually think you guys had him on one time at the Future, if I'm not mistaken. But he talks about just that as well, adding that you have to be smart enough to add that little extra in those sprints just to be able to and you got to be accurate with it. Sometimes if you know your work really well, you can get within like 10% accuracy rate of what's going on. But if you're kind of new getting going, he talks about setting 20% extra on top of that just to cover those incidences. But it's a really, really effective way to cover your ass, so to speak. But to bring, appreciate you diving into the business side a bit, but, we brought you on here to talk about your story because you're a fascinating individual to us. So yes. I want to rope it back into, the future and how you got here. Now you're moving on with life. You're doing well. You've settled. Another unequivocal factor of success, and this is, small Ben's opinion, your host, Ben, that who you surround yourself with is an enormous factor of success.
Oh yeah.
So
100%.
you're around some incredible individuals.
Yes.
I mean, Chris Do, I'm also a huge fan of Matthew and Sina. His work is, like you said,
he's an incredible person.
It's almost perfect, and you just want to punch yourself in the head sometimes.
Or him,
you're like,
sometimes. Just,
right. And I know you guys are coffee nuts too, so that's another thing I like about you guys. We are as well. But there's no such thing as really self-made. Mm-hmm. I think there's someone in your life that will always help you to get to the next level.
Right. Jim Rohn, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Precisely.
100% believe that. There's another concept I'm starting to get into stoicism, and Matthew was talking about this
stoicism
thing that he read the other day. It was like there's a Stoic author that talks about how you need the plus, equal, and minuses in your life. And I'm going to butcher this, but basically the pluses are people that you aspire to be. The equals are equals that you compete with, and then the minuses are the people that you help.
Wow.
And they were like, that is the true path to kind of self-development. And you need all 3 in your life. So I freaking love that. I don't know what has to do with stoicism, but
no, absolutely. Yeah. Me neither. But well, can you tell us how you've grown working alongside these teammates you've got with such legendary personas?
I think so. When I first joined the company, I had just a crisis of self-confidence because here I was like,
fear.
I was but I was a police officer. Right. And I had just left the department 3 years ago. And sure, I had grown a company and hired people and done projects and stuff like that, but nowhere near on the scale that I had put these guys on. The pedestal that I had these guys on was unreal. And so I felt like an imposter. I was totally self-conscious, very, very just complete lack of confidence. So being around these guys and like interacting with them on a daily basis, I'm starting to see, and I've started to see how much they respect me for the reason why I was ashamed. It was my background. And they're like, man, you grew something from nothing. I don't know that we could have done that. Matthew has a failed business in his history, and he's like, man, I really respect you for that. Right. And so seeing that kind of reflected from people that I admire just incredibly has sent, it's kind of like a roller coaster of self-confidence. So it's like got there and it just took a nosedive. And then now working with them after a while, I'm way more self-confident than I've ever been. So there's that. Creative skills wise, those guys are all beasts. They're all incredible designers. They're all incredible motion designers and videographers. So all of my creative chops have been honed.
Absolutely.
And then working with Chris on the business, I mean, I feel like I'm 100 times the business operator than I was back in the day. So it is truly the sum of the 5 people that you spend your most time with.
Absolutely, man. So you guys have now moved into, you're personally co-hosting a very successful series on, you guys' channel, The Future, building a brand, the Hamilton story, which was, I won't get into that. You guys can go watch that. I'll link it in the description. It's a phenomenal story from both the client side and you guys did. It's incredible. I mean, you get to see the days, day in and day out, the chaos that really goes on behind the scenes. And how did you guys realize that showing, opening your guys' doors, being completely transparent was invulnerable, the way to go for a new series? And did you guys know that it was going to be an instant success because of that? Or were you guys like, we're just going for it and it's open and honest?
Yeah,
and
we had no idea.
Create a lot of value.
We had no idea. And, to be honest, like the idea originated with Chris. Chris was like, let's find a business that we can redo and document the process. And I was like, Chris, I found this company. It's like, please let me do this. Please let me run with this. I really want to do this project.
So you found Hamilton.
Yeah. So, he looked at the numbers and he was like, I don't know, man. I was like, I have not asked you for a special project yet. Please. So he gave it to me and immediately pulled Matthew on board and we just went to work. But the thing that you don't see in the series is that like that project lasted over a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Over a year.
Wow.
And it was because the budget for the job was so low that anytime a new job came in, we had to prioritize the new job. And we couldn't spend the time working on the Hamilton stuff.
Did you set that expectation with them ahead of time?
Yeah.
This is some key insight for our listeners.
Yeah. So that was just one of those things. And, we had kind of like a crunch for time half the way through the project, which is the gap between when the logo and the design system was finished and then when all of the rest of the stuff kind of started. So there was a 4 to 5 month gap there between the logo being done and then us working on the website and stuff like that.
Right.
So that's something that you don't really see in the series, which is kind of interesting.
The can, like the color of the liquid itself and the can, like it all works because you get this like really orange, almost looks like someone spiked it with a little bit of OJ.
Yeah.
But all the colors, like they work so well together. It's a unique thing.
That's cool. The crazy thing is that we did this can.
Yes.
And Josh did this can.
Okay.
The beauty of this is that Josh used the design system that we built and the color system.
The style guide.
The style guide perfectly.
Give us some imperfections. So you're saying because the top...
Yeah, so you see the ticket edge here kind of pops out of the corner there.
Can we do this for...
Yeah, you're on there. It sees you.
Okay. I would just move that kind of sticker looking thing up so it covers that corner. And maybe even tilt it a little bit.
Josh, get on it, brother. So to circle back in, pardon the interruption, you guys take about a year to get this series off the ground.
Yeah.
You're jumping in and out of other projects that come in to kind of utilize a discounted, rate. They probably couldn't afford the full rate, but
right.
Due to the value of, showing this and this vulnerability, this experience, the ups and downs that go on both sides, did it meet those expectations or blow past them? Because for me, man, I loved watching every episode. I look forward to it, just for a little insight for you guys as a viewer, a groupie, if you will. It was incredible.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And it's really good to hear that because behind the scenes, we kind of look at this as a fail.
Interesting.
So the content is awesome. It is amazing. The views, not that great.
So it's not just to keep everyone on their toes. I thought that's where you were going with it.
No, it's literally like we're looking at this and we're seeing the results and we're like, this series cost, maybe $250,000 to put together because we're documenting things for a year. We had 10 terabytes of footage at the end of the year.
Ouch.
And then we had the 4-month process of editing and curating a story and crafting this thing from it, educating along the way, and the balance of like, how much do we tell them? Because we're using our products on a day-to-day basis. Like, how much do we educate for free and then, recommend they go buy these frameworks? So it's like a lot of effort put into this and to craft something that I love. Like the content is my favorite content that we have on the channel.
100%.
The results though, if we look at the numbers, the amount of money that we pulled in from revenue, product sales, and sponsorships compared to Chris sitting in front of the camera for 30 minutes and just spitting something, it's night and day. The ROI just isn't there. So we're looking for ways that we can do this. Obviously, in the future, we're not going to spend a year doing these projects.
Of course. And it gets faster as you develop
exactly
the
and
flow.
How can we use this to drive the business forward for the future, while at the same time not sacrificing the content and the story?
Absolutely.
So that's why we were looking for, like, do we go to Netflix? Do we sell this as a series to Amazon Prime? Can we get more sponsors on a higher level to kind of just at least carry the production costs through?
Right.
And to your game plan, should you sell this to a subscription, maybe Amazon Prime, what have you, instantly, immediately, it's worthwhile?
It could be. We're still in kind of conversations. It's like we have something that we've made and we don't know the value of that yet because nobody's like put a firm bid on it. So it's still kind of an experiment. But right now we're like, do we put that much effort in again? Do we not? So it's behind the scenes. There's a lot of turmoil around that series.
And you have a lot of forthcoming episodes, a lot of forthcoming content.
So on that note, you guys have almost, I thought we'd hit 600,000. I say we because I'm like part of the family, but it's like 593 or 4 right now. It's like teetering, and I was really hoping to say 600,000. So we'll say 600,000 just because it's incredibly impressive. On the note of revenue streams, how do you guys make money utilizing that series? Do you guys obviously ads? I'm assuming, and we'll jump into the Webflow concept here in just a bit. Us being a software, we're very intrigued with that. But what are the other revenue streams that you guys get from there?
So 85% of our revenue comes from courses and kits. So the future is an education company.
Yes.
We are actively building and revolutionizing creative education.
Which
right
I
now,
myself am a user of. And love
nice.
It. Yes.
Yeah. So like we're tackling problems like how can we scale critiques? Because in a traditional design education, you, as a student, you go in with your work that you've done at home and the professor critiques you and you get this instant feedback to, improve your work. So how can we do that at scale? That's kind of the problems that we're looking at solving.
Right.
And revolutionizing the way that people learn creative and business principles is really where we're focused on. So there's that. That's, like I said, 85% of our revenue comes from that. Then we've got ads on YouTube, which they're pennies. I don't know how some of these guys are making a living from YouTube ads. But
millions and millions of listeners.
Seriously. But, so it's a very, very small amount. It's probably 2 or 3% of our overall revenue.
Okay.
And then sponsorships is another big thing. Speaking, fees. And then,
so things that dwindle after the fact as well, like they see you in the series and they say, "Hey, Ben, can you come do a speech with us at our event?" And then you tell them your costs, and boom, it's up.
So that's kind of like the business, the big picture of the business from the actual series. Working with Hamilton, really the only revenue was the revenue that we got for the project itself, the ad revenue, and then we saw a little bit of bump in like course and kit sales while the series was active.
Surely there must be some cross-pollination. People find you from from this, and then maybe strike a deal with maybe logo design or some branding.
Yeah, I mean, we've had inquiries, but that's one of those areas that we don't take on client projects anymore. So we give that to our pro group. So the people who join and get the weekly mentorship from Chris, we immediately funnel those jobs.
That's incredible, man.
That's cool.
If you could speak to that for just 10 seconds or 15 seconds.
I mean, the way that we're funneling work to them, or
yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things where, like I said, moving forward 10 years, what do we focus on right now? And I said this in a live stream a couple days ago. The easiest thing in the world would be for us, with Chris at the helm, and Matthew and Sina and I and Greg. The easiest thing in the world would be for us to go get client work. So the money is all out there. We could go get that very, very simply. For us, we want to prioritize education because, I don't want people to get hit in the face like I did. I don't want people to, go through the Odesk churn and stuff like that. So that's really, we're really mission focused on that. And so when these jobs come in, we'll vet them, we'll make sure that they're real things. And then the people that pay for our time on a weekly basis, we make sure that we're giving them the opportunities to win these jobs.
Wow. It's like, they say everyone has a plan until someone gets punched in the face. This could be your plan. And the cool thing here is, the cycle that this creates, the inbound work, you guys kind of cull the leads. So here you have like this, this victorious cycle that you're kind of handing off to these people who need a leg up. I think that's incredible.
And honestly, when we were taking, because I helped run both companies at the same time. 2017 was really our big year for scale and getting everything up and running. And then 2018 was, let's throw gasoline on the fire. And so running both companies at the same time, it was amazing to me how many leads came in through YouTube. The $250,000 project, the logo that we did, $90,000 single day strategy session, WordPress website for $300,000. Those all came in through YouTube.
Wow.
So
exposure.
The content game really works. It really does.
We're doing the right steps. It'll take some time, but so back to kind of the story a little bit. I can assume, your team doesn't always see eye to eye. I've heard that you and Chris are in that category sometimes, via the series, if you will. But do you have any crazy or intense Chris Doe stories of, maybe where you guys didn't see eye to eye, messed up on something, or where maybe on the reciprocal he had to set a client straight?
No, I think I think honestly Chris is the best boss that I've ever had. And this is coming from somebody who I never thought that I was going to have another boss ever again.
I don't mean to put Chris Doe in like a negative light. I'm just professionally,
seriously,
things happen, people mess up, people don't see eye to eye.
We definitely disagree on a lot, and a lot of times it's his grand vision and me trying to figure out how the hell to execute it, right? And so that's where the conflict between us comes in.
Gotcha.
And a lot of times I'm really focused on making sure that we're pulling in revenue, and he's like, we definitely need revenue, but look at the bigger picture, so he's always pulling me back and looking, making sure that I'm looking at things from 30,000 foot view. But working with him on a day-to-day basis, like I said, hands down best boss. I mean, there's no one more supportive and helpful, even if it's through critique, that I've ever worked for. The crazy Chris Doe story that I want to share is this. There's this
Send it.
job, right? I knew it was a big job. It wasn't going to be in the millions, but it was definitely several $100,000 worth of work. And I had done tons of research on this company, and I was like, okay, we're going to nail this thing. And, the company was a very complex B2B telecom software thing. I mean, I still to this day don't even really understand it. And so we sit down, and I'm like, Chris, all right, I prepared a brief. This is the final sales call. Their CEO wants to meet our CEO. So let's, everybody sit down. Let me brief you on the company, and I'll tell you exactly what they do and give you some insights so you have some context. He was like, don't worry about it. I was like, what? He's like, no, I don't need that. He's like, what'd you do this weekend? I'm like, no, you don't understand. This is $400,000 worth of work. We need to prep for this. And he's like, I'm good, man. And so we get on the call, and the call's going well. CEO meeting CEO. It's kind of like, two alpha males meeting.
Apex predators.
Yeah, kind of size comparing or, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I gotcha.
And then...
male parts comparing.
Yeah, the CEO goes, so Chris, do you understand what we do? And Chris was like, no, not at all. And alarm bells in my head were going...
Oh my gosh.
And the CEO took a beat, and he was like, he laughed, and he was like, I like your honesty.
Wow.
And that was it. That was the whole call.
And did you guys get the job?
We got the job.
Oh my God.
True story.
True story.
Chris can see the future. That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy? I was like, in that moment, I was cursing him out in my head. I was like, what the hell are you doing?
This guy's a genius.
Yeah. He was like, no, I don't. My team runs most of these projects. If you had to sum it up, what would it be? And the CEO was just like, I love how honest you are.
Yeah. Oh my God. Good for you, Chris Doe.
So that was a little bit of a stressful moment there.
Oh man.
But he wrote an entire blog article about why saying I don't know is one of the biggest things that you can do to lead, that leads to self-confidence.
Yeah, we'll have to we'll write that in the show notes.
Yeah. I do that naturally. I'm always very quick to admit if I don't know what the hell is going on.
Yeah, and oftentimes we're men of research here. We do quite a bit.
Sure. You can't know everything, so
yeah. We try.
Well, on that note, actually, he's been quoted saying, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Mm-hmm. Telling a story through art and design, aesthetic subtlety is a very important aspect of business, and you guys do a tremendous job of that. But it's also, the reciprocal is balancing, the other main objective, which is making money. Do you find it hard to do that? Or is it because he's such a good leader, trusts what you do, that you're able to do your job really well and almost seamlessly?
So the question is really like, does making money conflict with our overall mission or the way that we...
Being a creative agency.
Okay.
Because I feel like, we're a small fraction of a creative agency. We do have a creative team. They have a different mentality. They love to just create and put their souls into things, but they don't quite necessarily always think about the bigger picture of the business. How do you become more profitable? How do you get those bigger clients, et cetera? Mm-hmm. You are managing the revenue portion of the future, mm-hmm. correct? So is there a conflict trying to get them to understand that?
No, I think when we talk about creativity, because we've run blind for so long, and Chris has been kind of running blind for 25 years. I think that there's a good handle on measuring creativity against revenue. And he's really good. Like he says all the time, listen, guys, creatives will take all the time that they're given. So if you give them 3 weeks to do something, they're going to take 3 weeks to do something. They're not going to get it done and stop. They're always going to be tweaking. So,
gotcha.
His recommendation is like, shorten those times, make sure that they're, they know that they have a tight deadline, and, maximize profitability. But the future is a different problem. The future is, it's less about creativity getting in the way. It's more about, if Chris could, he would give everything away for free. He literally wants to just revolutionize the way that people learn about creative skills and then creative business. And so that mentality and that mission, sometimes prioritizing that always kind of puts pulling in revenue as a lower priority. And he says this all the time. He's like, because he's been in business for so long, he's got so many buildings in Santa Monica. He's like, I could probably make more money just being a landlord if we just moved out of the space.
Right.
So the money thing, it's a high priority for him. He's always thinking about it, but it's less of a priority than the mission. And that's where the conflict comes in. It's like, all right, how do we do both? Because in my mind, I'm trying to make sure that these doors stay open the next month, right? And it's
right.
Okay, we want to hire 5 more guys. Let's do that. How are we going to pay for them? So it's like,
so the engineering front here at Dimension Software, we kind of have the similar issue, right? We contribute a ton to open source. We have a lot of open source projects. We've had a lot of popular open source projects. Mm-hmm. We love to give away knowledge for free. Then how do we make a business around that?
Right.
It's always a question.
It certainly creates a lot of recognition.
Right.
People love us for a lot of our open source works. But how do we? So I love that thought. Maybe we can riff off that a little bit. We don't own a ton of buildings around Los Angeles. Frankly, if we did, maybe we could be landlords, and then we could do more open source. So this is always, it's always that that push and pull.
Yeah. And being on that topic, being a software engineer and design firm here, it's really cool what you guys are doing now with the new series that you guys are doing, and how reshaping the website, and can you walk us through that process? I mean, you've been quoted on I believe it was the first episode, saying the website sucks. We need a new website. So
we love this series.
And being a web savvy guy and understanding, code languages and the implementation of, getting design to code isn't exactly eye to eye.
Yeah.
Can you just walk us through what was the reasoning behind that and kind of where you guys are right now with it?
Yeah. So when I joined the Future, there was a single product and it was being sold on Shopify. And in those days, to do what Chris wanted to do on Shopify would have been really expensive. The amount of plugins that we would have to buy, the monthly subscription, we would have lost money on the website basically because we just didn't have the products to support it.
It's a real pain.
Yeah. So I was like, you know what? Let's just get off Shopify, because he wanted a blog, he wanted to sell subscriptions, he wanted to sell bundles, he wanted to sell physical products. I was like, let's get off Shopify. Let's start a WordPress website. Use WooCommerce, and we'll just stand something up real quick. So I stood this thing up in like 3 weeks. I bought a theme from Theme Forest.
Good for you, man.
Freaking got it up. Bought the cheap WooCommerce plugins to do what he needed to do, and that was it. And so that was just our website for years. And this was something that's just like, hey, let's get it up so that we can do other things.
Right.
And I knew that things were starting to break. 2 years, a 2-year-old stock theme off the shelf is just going to crumble. It's going to, yeah. So here we were with this website that just didn't work. We're using Teachable to serve our educational content.
Okay.
So there was now the login for the WooCommerce website that the users could do, and then there was the login for Teachable that they could do, and there's just a lot of confusion. So that's the reason why it sucked. And what sucks even more is that we don't have a developer in-house. We don't have engineers or anything like that. We're just a group of designers. And I wanted to do a lot more experimentation. I wanted to do split testing and kind of like move our product pages around and things like that. And we couldn't do that without hiring an engineer. Like the product pages that we have right now, I hand coded because Teachable literally gives you like a space for HTML.
Awesome.
Yeah. So it's like, let me just hand code those, but it took forever. And making small changes would take hours. So we were looking for a solution that we could just get in there and make the changes and publish it. And from my days building websites for clients, it was like the WYSIWYG stuff back in the day just was horrible. It sucked.
Oh my God.
I mean, like Visual Composer for WordPress was like the best thing that hit the shelves back in those days. And you couldn't even see what you were doing. You'd have to move the blocks, hit publish, look at the front end of the site, confirm.
There's no preview.
Whoops, 20 pixels off, go back to the back end, move it again. So it's like, these things were horrible.
The iterations were much longer.
Yeah. So when Webflow came into our lives, that was just like, man, if this works, it's going to be amazing. So the first thing I did was like, I went home and built my own site. I was just like, let me throw up a quick landing page. And
is that the one that it is now?
Yeah, it's still there.
Which is cool.
It's still there.
Yeah, that's a cool
I was like,
site, man.
let me play around with like actual dynamic text resizing and see if this thing, I'm going to push this thing to its limits.
Transitions and animations, etc.
That kind of stuff. So I did that and I was like, guys, I just built this website in 2 days. We should do this. And so we started looking into the more advanced features and functionality and finally decided to just rebuild the whole thing in Webflow. So that's been a process.
How can you compare Webflow to, say, Squarespace or any of? There's a lot of off the shelf.
Honestly, it's been years since I've used Squarespace or Wix. Matthew uses Squarespace for his website, and he's kind of dabbled in Webflow a little bit, and he's like, the flexibility is night and day.
Yeah, Webflow is programmable, right?
Yeah,
much more so.
Yeah, and you can. I mean, it's visual coding is really what it is. It's what Dreamweaver back in the day really aspired to be.
I love it as an engineer.
Yeah. So it's like a designer can go in and create the front end, but in doing so, they have to understand CSS. They have to understand basic HTML because you're working with div and paddings and margins and stuff like that. So you actually have to know a little bit about how websites are built, the box model.
Right.
So I think it's a great tool not only to get in there and, publish things really quickly, but also so that designers can actually learn some front end in the process. So
that's awesome,
that was cool.
Man. Yeah, you guys must really trust Webflow with so much on the line, because visually and, actually functionally, a website could theoretically make or break a business.
Of course.
Especially with such a huge agency transitioning from WordPress now to Webflow. How was that transition? Was it pretty smooth? Did you guys like it? Or were there some problems that you had to work out?
Yeah. So we documented the process. It's a new series on the YouTube channel. But what we didn't cover in the series is the last 4 weeks.
Okay.
So we had this meeting where, so Greg was running with the new site, and Greg, for some reason, didn't show Chris the design before we moved it into Webflow. We still don't really know why, but when Chris looked at the fully developed site in Webflow, he was like, guys, I think we missed the mark a little bit. So 4 weeks ago, Greg, threw a noose over my neck and pulled me into the project.
Right.
And he was like, okay, we gotta redo this. So we redid the entire site. There's 250 pages. Redid the entire site in the past 4 weeks.
Oh my goodness, man.
Whoa. And what you see
How many
online,
guys you got working on that?
This is the crazy thing. So the Webflow's one limitation. Webflow's one limitation is that only one person can be in the designer at a time.
No.
So that is a major, major flaw. So we literally had one guy at a time. We were taking shifts, like afternoon and morning shifts.
Yeah. Taking watch, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And just combing through and beating this thing to death. So, but the fact is that we got 250 pages up in 4 weeks. So it's it's pretty amazing what we were able to do. Yeah.
Wow.
So, the process was, once I had 2 more people that knew how to use it, it was really, really simple. The biggest kind of conflict in the process came from clashing classes or creating a CSS class that was only used one time versus making sure that we were using the same classes over and over again.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit of the back end stuff that we were.
There's some good automated tools that can discern some of these things and maybe offer, whether it's efficiency sort of improvements and or do them automatically.
Yeah.
I don't know how they work with Webflow. Maybe they don't. But
well, yeah, I'd be willing to check it out.
Yeah, we can talk. We'll keep in contact, whatever. And we can send you some stuff via email or whatever.
Yeah.
If we come across anything that might work well, it's like, hey man, try this out because it might be a little more effective.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the mad rush was we needed to get this thing up so that we could start iterating on it because we started our website project in February. It had been 7 months and it was all right, we gotta get something out so we can start making tweaks.
We know the feeling.
Yeah. So it's when we published the site last week, we got a lot of backlash from the audience.
Interesting.
The audience were like, man, I'm so disappointed with the way that you guys ran this project. And, because the series kind of focuses more on the conflict, the drama in between the members of the team than the actual process. So I think focusing on the drama kind of opened up the doors to a lot of criticism.
Gotcha.
And so the silver lining of this is that we have 600,000 bug checkers
warriors
that are on us, and they're like, "Hey guys, your headings aren't hierarchical on this page." Cool, thanks. We would have paid $40 a month for a checker to do that.
Of course.
Would you Webflow again?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Webflow is, and I'm not paid to say this by any means, but certainly. I really think that Webflow and platforms like it are the future of the web. They just got to fix that single user thing.
Yeah.
Another tool that we like that's kind of in line with the future of designing websites, implementing even mobile and tablet, etc., is a tool we like called Famous. And actually, we love Famous. We actually have the CEO of Famous coming on in 2 weeks.
Oh, killer!
And I'll send you a link to the tool, man. It might be another way for you guys to speed up iterations, the design process, implementation. but it's also very sexy. And I think you guys will be able to maximize its capacity very easily. So famous is .co is a website.
Yeah.
I'll send you a link. But
we're excited to finally get to this segment, actually, because I feel like you guys could take famous.co as a platform, blast it out of the park.
yeah.
Really?
It's already sexy. I feel like you guys could just take it that even next step up.
We built, actually, just to kind of go off of it, so this QR code links to our famous mobile. And we have like a magic link that recognizes if you're on a phone.
Does this work?
Yeah.
Other side.
Don't do it. And so it links it to it, and it is a sexy little process. I mean, you can try it after this if you want.
Yeah, I will.
And it's really cool, man. We've gotten a lot of compliments on it. People asking, where the heck is this? They haven't quite launched yet. They launched this month. But we got to do some beta testing.
You
with
would
them.
love it.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'll check it out.
This is right up.
For sure.
I'll check it out. Yeah, I mean, we get a lot, like we have engineers on our channel that watch the channel, and we get a lot of negative. Yeah, there you go. We get a lot of negative feedback from these guys because I feel like they're threatened by these tools that are coming in to take their business and stuff like that. Do you guys feel the same way?
Yes and no.
Okay.
It has to do, I believe, with the person, the individual, like us. We totally could be, oh my God, it's not native. It's not the best.
Right.
But you've got to think about it from a business standpoint, man. And it's exactly everything you've been hitting on is that, one, what's the timeline looking like? What is the person willing to invest into this? All of these things. So while its capacity is limited, whereas native, which is custom, again, for all you non-nerdy types, is you have the world, the sun, and the stars to be able to do anything you'd like. But what's the scope of the project? How do you get there quickest? And how do you make them happy? Those tools are amazing. So for us, when we're able to help somebody get something done that maybe doesn't have these large projects, we work with smaller and medium-sized businesses. We do have some larger contracts, but we're a group of 10 guys, so but we do a really good job at it. And those tools we utilize to the utmost capacity.
They let us do a lot more with less.
Yes.
Actually, I think we love them, and then we have naturally being an engineering firm, the expertise to come in and dial up whatever needs to be.
Right.
So if we're using Webflow, which we'd love to check out, we actually use a ton of Famous. And the cool thing is we're able to they haven't got this quite transition, or let's say we want to transition to something, but then we want to embed a media player in here.
Exactly.
We want to iframe something in, or whatever it is.
We hack whatever the box is, and we're able to push the limits a little bit more. But
so for us, it's game changing because we can do so much more with less, and we can charge the client less.
That's one of the messages that I always send out to those people. And the other thing is, like, if somebody's going to go, because they're scared of the clients going to Webflow and buying a subscription, doing it themselves. I'm like, dude, you would not want those clients anyways. Exactly. It's like Odesk. It's like Fiverr. Oh my God. Who wants to work with Fiverr clients?
Let them have the $5 logos.
And let them get that experience themselves.
Because they'll come to you running saying, this isn't working.
Rescue me.
I get that.
Or when they need something a little special. When they need something a little special. Hey, I love what this did here. If it worked this way, or let's say it integrated with my already thing that exists.
Right. Right. Yeah.
For sure, interesting. Man. But yeah, so from a simple answer is, I think you've got to be able to see the bigger picture, and those tools are much easier to use. So if you can get the job done pretty much the same, by all means utilize them.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to make them as sexy as you can or we can from whatever standpoint and project it is. But sure, if they can do it themselves, why not?
Yeah,
exactly. And these tools are the future. It is where everything is driving.
Yeah,
unquestionably.
It just saves the sexy work for you guys.
That's right.
That's it.
Oh, yeah. we do our best, man. We try. But man, I can't tell you how much we appreciate you coming on. Can you give a last bit of advice for some of those young entrepreneurs, designers, creatives? There seems to be a little bit of a dichotomy here from some research and being kind of creative myself, growing up drawing, and sometimes I can be a little sensitive, and we put our heart and souls into certain projects, but with this comes a lot of sensitivity towards having hard time separating criticism and feeling that, our characters being, or my character sometimes is like being attacked. You have to learn to be able to, separate those feelings from what's actually happening. Are they trying to help you versus are they attacking you? Being a leader in the space, what would you say to those new creatives coming up, trying to make it to the big jump to the big leagues as you did with, the future?
Yeah, I want people to stop preparing, because I feel like as a culture, we're stuck in so many ways. And I think a lot of it has to do with permission almost. It's like, if you want to go start a business, the best way to do that is just to go start a business, right? You're not going to have this roadmap laid out in front of you. If you want to go and be a designer, then do what a designer does and open the program and design. Like, if I can encourage people not to go to school and not to spend so much time and effort on this, whatever roadblock that they think they're facing between them and their goal, that's my entire mission in life. It's like, don't wait. Just get enough to move and go, because that's pretty much what I've done. It's like, I get enough of a parachute to jump, and then I'm out the door.
Right.
And that's really how you make those massive moves forward. So that's kind of my advice, is just like, go for it. Stop waiting, stop preparing, learn enough, and then go do.
Don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
Stop asking permission.
Yeah.
Awesome,
Here, I
man.
tell you what, permission granted. For everybody out there,
Love it.
for everybody out there, you
That's
have my
right.
permission to follow your dream. How about that?
That's beautiful.
Oh, man.
So
Sage advice.
let our listeners know you got this camera. Let them know what's coming up next for the future, for you, where they can find you, your handles.
Yeah, so I'm
number.
everywhere, Mr. Ben Burns, except for Twitter, Mr. Ben Burns _. You should report that guy, though. It's for real.
We will.
But
We
honestly,
will.
visit the future everywhere. It's the future is here on YouTube, especially if you're in the creative sphere and you want to learn business and creative skills.
A top 10 beard of all time, a creative guru, and the future Hall of Famer. I'm trademarking that, by the way. He's the father of the year. His first name is legendary. The future is safe. That's number 2 because of you, sir. He heard the call and took action. Thank you, Mr. Ben Burns, for coming on our show. Love to have you back
Thanks, guys.
in the near future. I did it again. 3 for 3. We're super stoked to take this podcast journey with y'all. You're going to love our guests and their stories. And you can check us out on our website, dimensionsoftware.com, and connect with us on our LinkedIn at Dimension Software. Hit us up, even if it's just to say what's up. All of this will be on our show notes at the end of each episode. And smash that subscribe button if you find our content useful. Again, I'm your host, Ben, and this is Call to Action Podcast, Command Q.
And this is Keith. Have a kick-ass day.